coming to you from the top of the window.
And of course, if they would have known that they were being recorded, there's no doubt in my mind the conversation would have been totally different.
Let me talk, Carol. Translate that for us. I don't know what that means.
We don't have the
Stealing one of your waters.
Those are my decorative waters.
Do it
don't look good.
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Not a community. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Brain Gravy Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Heckman. Here in studio, going around the table, I have Matt Reichman.
Hello.
What's going on, Matt? You can say something.
Hi, what's up?
And then our guest tonight is Eric Edwards, the owner and operator of Sugar Haven Farms in lovely Rexville, New York. How's it going, Eric?
Doing well.
Doing well. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Hanging in there.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you on because you're one of these local guys that do a lot with something that we're definitely interested in, which is just basically treating animals the right way and selling quality fucking meat products. And I think you sell like raw honey and like herbal teas.
Yes, those are kind of auxiliary.
Yeah.
Farmers, like-minded farmers. I do have bees on my farm, but I don't actually sell the honey.
I got you. So they kind of come in, or
yep.
They
it's part of packaging. So the idea is if they're going to come to the website to buy one product and make the trip, we might as well load up the cart.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So because I don't do the honey, we have someone else who does that, and then with the herbal teas and stuff like that. So I concentrate mostly on grass-fed beef, pastured pork, pastured chicken, using a non-GMO feed, and so that's the route and the philosophy we've chosen on the farm.
No, that's awesome too, because I think we can all agree that sustainable farming is the only way to go into the future anymore.
That's my mindset. That's what I'm betting the literal and metaphorical farm on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. That there's a lot out there that might be contrary to that. The ideas of monocultures and the big question: how do we feed 9 billion people by 2050? Well, I don't think you can do it by a monoculture. That's my view. My point is that each square foot of the farm has to yield more than one source, whether it's corn, soy, which are the most popular GMO crops now. So, yeah, there's so many angles to come at.
Yeah.
So we talked before. What's your interpretation of what's going on up on that hill? Have you driven by and seen the field shelters or seen the cattle at different times?
Yeah. So I guess to our listeners that don't know, me and Eric actually knew each other. We grew up together.
Yes.
We actually graduated from the same high school.
Yes.
And I've drove by your house easily 1,000 times in my life. And then, of course, the farm's right there. But I have noticed in the past couple years, I guess I noticed it with your, I don't know if it's the chickens or the pigs or something, but it seems like your shelter is sort of enclosed. I think it's for the chickens, so they can't get out. But they have it's like what, like 40 feet by 20 feet enclosed area that you have there for the chickens.
So that one would be for the egg layers. So we have there's two different kinds of chickens. You'd have the egg layer chicken and the one that's for meat. That's
they're different.
Yes,
I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh yeah, very different. And so the enclosure that you saw would have been a mobile hen house.
Okay.
And basically we move that about every 3 days, and we have an electrified netting that goes around it. It's 177 feet. One person can pick it up and take it down and set it up without everything being super heavy. And that's kind of infrastructure that didn't exist as little as, say, in 1995. So we're talking kind of state-of-the-art electronics with the energizers that keep the bears out, fox out, raccoons out.
This is like
and keep chickens in.
Okay, so this is like basically like the Jurassic Park of farming, pretty much, and that's the egg layer paddock,
minus the shitty acting. So yeah.
How dare you, sir? I love Jurassic Park. So you move that once every 3 days?
And for the egg layers, yes, that'd be moved every 3 days. Basically, we don't want the animals on any area of the ground long enough to actually destroy the ground, destroy the bacteria in the soil, to destroy the plants.
Oh, is that why you do it?
They will. Yes, they will do that. So what we want to do is give the land a chance to heal, a chance to rest after we've exercised it. We've done a pulse on it with some form of activity, whether it's a cow chewing grass, a pig rutting, or a chicken pecking through and scratching through the grass for bugs or little stones or anything like that. And so we go, basically it's what's best for the health and productivity of the land to have a product that's yieldable. And again, going back to why I don't think monocultures are the way, is because you have those huge hundreds and hundreds of acre fields.
Right.
They grow corn on it for, let's say, 107 days a year or so. That's usually what it takes to get the maturity for field corn, 85 to 107, somewhere in there. And so if that per square yard, square foot, square inch is only yielding 5 corn crops, or 5 corn plants, or in a square inch a half of a plant or whatever,
right.
What I can do with my products is grow beef on that, and then in the same, once we give the land a chance to heal, we can have chickens come across that, egg laying chickens.
Okay.
And then even later we can have the meat chickens come across. So now we have three sources of income off that square, off that square inch.
Off that area of land,
Let's say a square foot. My measurements, I'm going all over with the measurements. But
just a parcel of land, or a unit of land,
however you want to measure it.
Mm-hmm.
We prefer probabilities here.
Yes.
What's the hectare is a unit of land measurement, right?
Yep, that's in Europe.
That's in Europe?
Yep.
I don't know where I know
you're
that
getting closer.
Yep. Yep. No, in the States where we obviously have the
acres, yeah.
Yeah, and if you were to ask me to, how big is an acre, I don't actually know.
I don't know either.
It's about that big.
That's one we'd have to look up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The whole look up thing.
But that's pretty cool. So, when you have the the egg laying chickens and the meat chickens, do they because I'm sure you probably factor in how they fertilize the soil from their waste,
yes.
their waste products.
Mm-hmm.
Do you is the waste from an egg laying chicken the same as a meat chicken? Because I know it's probably high in nitrogen.
Meat chicken
right?
would have a bigger waste because you want more meat.
I don't know.
You're an idiot. I mean, I guess like what do you factor that in when you're
the actual nitrogen levels?
Yeah,
per,
yeah.
I'm not sure. It would depend on the feed. A meat bird chicken is going to get a feed that's 21% protein.
Okay.
Egg laying chicken is going to get one about 18%, 16 to 18%.
Okay.
Protein. So in there is the variances. I'm sure it's nuanced, but it's not as radical as cross species, where if you were to go the waste stream of the pig, the cow, or the chicken.
Right.
So I don't know what those are as far as between the meat chicken and the egg layer.
No, I gotcha.
Yeah.
So, when you say monoculture farming, what exactly does that mean?
So, monoculture is just as its right in its root word, the mono, one, singular culture. So, it's going to be it's only going to be one source of you can call it product, material, whatever, will be grown. There's lots of monocultures. Usually, it's referenced to plants.
I gotcha.
I'm trying to think industrial agriculture, where you would have, say, the feedlots with 50,000 head of beef. The ones that you can smell 6 miles, away.
Right.
They have them in Kansas and California and a handful of places. We don't have them that many around here like that are that large,
right?
Because of the calories that would require to keep they'd have to keep warm.
That's a huge
know.
amount of fucking cattle to have. Like I don't like
Unreal.
Like what do you think the number of cattle you can have max before the quality of life? Because like 50,000, you have to imagine that each of those cows is not having room to graze. They're not getting the attention from their owners, or I guess. What
And
would
they
you call
certainly don't all have names.
They don't all have names.
All right, we got to name 50,000 cow. Let's do it.
We're running to the end of the book on this one. No, so
Get
like
another baby names book.
But like, what is that number? Like, do you think that it's like 100 cows would be the max for an operation to, I guess, be able to label their products the way you label them? As far as, you know, I forget how you put it in the beginning, but like is that like 1,000, or like what do you think that number is? I guess
I don't think there's an actual number on it because it's all about the management.
Right. I guess that's true. If you can hire a bunch of people, but
you know, it's like if it'd be just like in humans. If you were to go into a room and you were to say, "Well, how many people is too many in this room?"
Right.
Well, there isn't an actual number.
We're going to need the fire department.
The
for
fire
this.
marshal
Yeah,
on
the
this
fire
one, yeah.
marshal.
Yeah, they have recommended amounts.
Yeah.
Now, how many head do you have on your farm?
There's 64 right now.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so we do about 64. It takes about 2.5 years to do a grass-fed beef to get it up to size.
Right.
Which would be, we'd call it slaughter weight, harvest weight, whatever term you want to use. So, yeah, you'd get them, 28 months, 2.5 years. And not sure where I was going to go with that. Well, in an industry, they can do it in 16 months. Now,
I got you.
Yeah. So this is I have a lot of information about the farming. So like the broad question, I'm having trouble fielding.
That's all right.
Yeah. Because I there's like 1,000 points I want to bring up. And,
yeah.
So I'm just trying to. Why don't we just go forward with more of your interpretation
of what the farming is?
Yeah.
So, like, I guess, like, you know, when I imagine a grass-fed farm with happy cattle, and you know, you can certainly taste the difference in the meat. I've had, if you go to a nice, you know, a nice restaurant and they advertise local grass-fed beef, you know, you're fucking crazy if you don't think that there's a difference in the taste of that meat, that meat versus something that comes from like a 50,000 head fucking farm. You know what I mean? There's and it's more expensive, but I get it. That's what it takes more money to produce.
Takes a lot more time too.
Takes more time, more money, and it's worth it in my opinion. But I think it's still hard for a lot of people to justify that price when, you know, they probably haven't had, like, you know, they'll go to Walmart and buy a steak there and think that's just a good steak, but there's a difference in that flavor. And I you know, like, where do you think that is? It the hormones? Like where does that distinct difference in flavor come from versus like I think it is there's different hormones in the meat, or there's stress hormones. Is that it?
Well, they so when you have them on a feedlot, what your goal is to get them to processing weight as quick as possible.
Right.
And that's because it's that's how they make their money. So what they'll usually do is put a growth hormone tag that goes in the corner of the ear. It's a slow release hormone. They'll also in the feed they'll usually have antibiotic. It's part of the routine because those cows are not out grazing. They don't actually eat grass. They don't self-harvest any grass. Usually a planned diet is brought to them where corn is one of the main
just because it fattens them?
Ingredients. Yes, it's a good energy source. It's subsidized by the government, so it's they can grow it pretty cheap.
Right.
And so it's kind of a false inflation. It's kind of a false statement to say that the grass-fed is more expensive because the costs are being outsourced when you get into industrial agriculture.
Is that right? Because the corn is subsidized.
Yeah. Yep.
And if it wasn't subsidized, it wouldn't offset the cost like that.
If the true market
Interesting.
Where if it were actual true market values, then that's not sustainable.
Oh shit.
Doing the corn, I mean, you know how much energy goes into feeding, getting that corn to the feedlot, storing it. So you got to grow it,
All
you
the
got to
gas
harvest it,
involved.
you got to bring it to the animals, and then haul the waste away.
Yep.
Where with what my animals do is they'll go out. I build a paddock for them. They're on that paddock for 24 hours. They eat, they're full, and then we move on to the next paddock. So I'm making and unmaking paddocks every day. Mm-hmm. Where on the feedlot, the animals are staying still and the raw materials are being hauled in. And so that it's just two different philosophies.
Right.
And again, with the outsourcing of the actual risks, subsidized corn, what is the cost of the Rhode Island sized dead spot in the Gulf of Mexico from leaching
Right.
ammonia, nitrogen from petroleum fertilizer?
Yep.
What's that value? Is there P&L, profit and loss?
Yep.
PAL?
And just like all the bacteria, like on the coast, I think Florida, was it Florida that had it really bad this summer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like when you fuck with all that, like that shit, like that, like algae blooms, I think are a serious issue in the North Atlantic.
Yeah, like things you don't really think about ahead of time, and then the runoff just fuels everything.
There's a lack of oxygen there, right? And so the fish that are going to rely on the proper environment for their own growth are going to be moved out or killed off.
Right.
And so does each fish have value? Does each...
Yeah.
What is
so it
the
affects
value
like a lot of
that?
different like ecosystems, and it has a huge impact on everything.
And
I feel like that's just something that like people have known for, forever, probably since agriculture came to be, thousands of years ago. And it's something we forgot, but we're trying to get back to as far as just understanding, just how careful, like how sensitive our ecosystem everywhere in the world is. We
were kind of blind to it while we were ramping up production and trying to meet needs. And
now we're trying to play catch up. And, I think what we're doing here as far as just spreading this information is the key to that. Just talking about it, telling people why, fucking having 50 head of cattle on a farm isn't going to work for the next fucking 50 to 100 years. Definitely not further, and I think it all kind of ties into as far as like global warming and a lot of these issues that we kind of have to focus now, or else future generations are going to be fucked.
Yeah, there's a much bigger picture to look at. Instead of just what's here and now.
No, definitely. One thing that I was talking to someone a while back. I forget who it was. But they were telling me about this farm that they went to, and it's a larger farm. I think they had like 1,000 head or over 1,000 head. And it's really interesting how they had it automated. So like what happens is each cow has a tag on its body somewhere. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's like embedded in the skin or something, but it's basically an RFID chip.
Yep.
And what happens is that 24/7 cows move through like they're kind of being shuffled through a hallway, let's say, and their RFID chip gets scanned, and I think their waste is also being scanned at their individual stall. So basically, what's known about them is like if they have an iron deficiency, or if they have a calcium deficiency, or
so like
a
individual
calcium
statistics
excess
per cow or whatever.
Per cow, yeah. And then they go in. Basically, what happens is they go into a rotating, sort of like a carousel, if you could think about it, like with 50 cows on it at once.
They might be happy.
Yeah, and like basically what happens is that carousel goes to their individual feed station. The computer says, "Hey, this is cow 248. We know 248 is low in calcium, but has an excess of iron. So
Send
we're
them
gonna
through the trap door."
So we're gonna change up. Would you shut the fuck up?
Sorry.
So we're gonna change up their feed. So it basically balances that out, and then they eat. The carousel kicks them out halfway down the thing, and then they go on, and that's how they rotate their. Like, have you heard of that kind of farming and how, like, I don't know how prevalent that is in larger farms anymore. It seems like that's a way to make it work, but you're not taking into account like their ability to roam freely, and obviously their quality of life is going to be a lot different than a cow that has the ability to be free like that. But what's your take on all that, I guess?
So I think I think what you're describing we're milk cows. The carousel actually goes around slow, and the cow can come and go as it pleases to get milk, and then it'll receive its feed. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Again, you brought it up, the quality of life, not just for the animal, but how do you handle the waste streams? How about the workers that are there, the farmers or the people that are doing the work,
right?
On that, I don't have an opinion on that. Yeah. It's interesting. It's fascinating to see how the technology is worked in. And I think if you can get down to the micro level where you're doing, managing, usually it's a urine strip that would tell whether the animal itself is iron deficient or what it needs. They have interesting uses. One of the things is, I don't think if you were interested or you had a brother-in-law or someone who was interested in getting agriculture, I don't think anybody can just get into that.
Right.
You at least have to have good credit to buy the $300 million automation system that can detect iron deficiencies in the urine of a specific animal.
Yeah, that seems like an industrialized process at that point.
Yes, and to be able to... That's one of the unique things in agriculture is that in the next 20 years, a large percentage of the farmers are aging out. The average farmer, the statistics vary, is 58 to 62, somewhere in there. There's a whole... but anyway, at Google, the average age is 35, and they say if the average age is over X amount, let's say 42, the industry is dying.
Right.
Well, in agriculture, it's like 20, 30 years over a dying industry.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it changes hands and who can actually access that market. Can a young entrepreneur, a farmer who really, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and wants to go get the world, can they purchase land? Can they purchase the equipment? A combine, which you use 3 weeks out of the year, that costs $300,000.
Right.
I don't think they can, nor why would you? Why would you want to do that?
It's insane to me, too.
So when you're talking with the technology, that stuff's super cool. I love it. That's fascinating. But now what?
Right. You have to know how to work the land, which is something that gets passed on, right?
Yeah, you have to bring in raw material into the cattle and haul the waste stream out. Somebody has to be there. So that the technology is fine, and that's cool and sexy and all, but it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't solve a solution.
Right.
It's not a viable solution. And so now the question is, what next?
Right.
And going back to the the land switching hands in the next 20 years, I mean, it's a huge percentage. And so are we going to have a lot of landowners, say, from foreign investors? Is it going to stay in the family? Is it going to, obviously, if it was going to stay in the family, then the average age of farmers wouldn't be 62. The average age of farmers would be 38 or whatever. So it's not. So that's not an option. So now what? And so I don't have an answer.
I know. You have to wonder.
I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen.
Right.
And I'm sure it'll bring in like non-classic like farming people to like roboticists and. Like with all that tech coming in, you probably get programmers and.
Well, that's what like on that movie. What is it? Interstellar. All the tractors were robots, or not robots, but they were just automated. So like the guy got up in the morning and said, "Hey, I'm going to send tractors 2, 3, and 4 out the fields, 5, 6, and 7," and then pushes a button, and then the tractors know how to come out of their storage areas, and then they just go and do their thing.
So
and then
essentially,
come back.
wake up and do a little Farmville.
It's basically Farming Simulator.
Yeah, Farming
that's another
Simulator.
They have games out there. Farming Simulator is a popular game. You know what I mean?
Oh, I knock them all the time. I'm like, I look at the weird simulator games, and then I looked at one. It was like Euro Truck Simulator 2. I was like, why do 75,000 people think this is overwhelmingly positive? Why do they rate this game so high? I was like, well, it's on sale. I'll buy it and figure it out. So I bought it, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, this game is really soothing. Man, driving a truck is really calming. Like, I really like this game. It's like, damn it, I fell into the trap.
Are you serious?
75,000 other people, yeah.
75,001.
Jesus Christ! Did you see they have one the Goat Simulator? I think is a popular one,
that was
right?
real popular. Yeah,
I don't even know what that one's about, but
Didn't Penn Jillette do that? Make a truck game that went from like Reno to Las Vegas real time, and so the whole point of the game was that you were the trucker.
yeah.
But instead, you couldn't automate it because there was a pull to the right. So you always had to every once in a while hit the left arrow or whatever, and it was real time. So you went there. So say it's a 4-hour drive, so you'd go the whole 4 hours with it pulling slightly to the right.
So you had to stay at the keyboard.
Yeah, so you can't just let it go.
Right.
And then the second part of the game is you go home. So it's 4 hours back, and somewhere like around hour 7 or something, a cricket or something smashes into the windshield, and so there's a dead cricket in the upper right corner.
I never heard of that game.
Oh, you haven't? Yeah, and he did that to prove that the video games don't cause violence. It was his premise that he was trying to show. And I know some people have played it. I haven't played that one. But that looked, the idea is hilarious. So the premise would be, well, if video games cause violence, then this will cause a bunch of people to go out and truck in real time, and they didn't. And so, yeah,
that's one thing. The trucking industry doesn't seem to be like. It seems like there's still people that are our age that are getting their what is it?
CDL.
Said their CDL licenses and are going into it. But you have to wonder, like, trucking is one of these industries that, for sure, in the next 20 years is going to an automated process. I mean, if you look at Tesla cars right now, Tesla cars can drive themselves. And they can drive themselves better than humans. Like all the crashes for the self-driving Tesla cars, I think they can link those back to a user error in some way.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, like people on the road, like not doing what they're supposed to, and the computer's like using the rules of the road, and the people aren't.
The people aren't, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people are much more likely to fuck up than any fucking Tesla car. And it's interesting too because Tesla came out with, like, they put out this car, right? And it already had the stuff in it to be completely automated, in a completely automated car. And then about 2 years after they released that car, they sent out an update by like a live update that once your car is near a wireless connection, it just receives the update, and your car, you wake up to a fucking brand new operating system on your car, basically, because it updates while you're asleep. So all these people got this, I think they call it ludicrous mode. Why they named it that, I have no idea. But basically what it does is it says you can say, okay, I'm ready to go in this self-driving car mode. But I like the first couple months after that, there was all these videos on the internet of people like being completely fucking asleep in their car on the highway as their car is just fucking driving. But that's where we're at. And if that's in a car right now, you have to wonder, like, how long is it going to take for a truck to be completely automated? Because at the rate the technology is improving and increasing, 20 years is like I'm expecting fucking robots. I'm expecting Westworld in fucking 20 years, all right? I think, like 10 years for self-driving trucks is probably a practical guesstimate, if I just say,
Well, at the same time, they promised us VR in the 90s, and we're just getting there now.
I know, that's true. But the VR we have now is fucking insane, so it's worth the wait. Hey, before I forget, I wanted to do this before we get too far in the episode. We are missing one of our co-hosts tonight, Corey Coleman, but she was kind enough to bring us some gifts. So I'm going to hand those out.
She said she had some gifts.
Uh-oh.
So, to Eric Edwards from Corey Coleman, you have a T-shirt.
Yay.
Check that out.
Better be from the Legion.
And then also to Matt from Corey Coleman, another T-shirt.
Oh.
Yeah, check. Hold that up for a second. What does this say? Hop in.
Yes.
Sweet.
It has actual hops. I was talking with somebody about in agriculture, they're promoting a lot of hop growth.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of development.
What's yours say, Matt?
Keep calm and flash your stash.
Oh my God, very nice. Also,
Thank you, Corey.
the gift giving is not over.
Oh, Jesus.
Uh-oh. It's Christmas time.
We have some fresh dandelion wine that Corey and her husband made, and I can
Lunar
attest that
glisten?
this is very good. No, it's dandelion wine, and it's very, very good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
thank you.
Are you a wine drinker, Eric?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to break into mine. I actually have 3 wine glasses if you guys want one.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do
okay.
it.
Hook me up.
We have big, little, small, so
I'll take small.
Verizon logo.
I'll do the middle. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so Corey, thank you very much.
yes.
We really
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Corey.
This is so cool of you to give us. Her and her husband, I tried this when they were bottling it, and I'm telling you, I've never had dandelion wine before in my life.
Okay.
Fucking good. Is this the first time you've tried it?
No, I think I had.
Oh,
I was up
you
there
were
with
up there.
you.
Yeah. He was up there. Have you had dandelion wine before?
I haven't.
Okay, you're
I
in for a
have
treat
not.
then.
It looks good.
Yeah, no, they did a fucking good job on this shit.
Interesting.
That's very sweet too. Holy
do.
shit!
Oh, wow.
Wowza! Yeah, it's very sweet. That's like it's like a Riesling, pretty much.
I do hard apple cider and apple cider beer. I've been doing that probably 6 or 7 years now.
Is that right?
And, yeah, and I meant to bring some cider beer down tonight, and then you see how that works out. But that's interesting. Dandelion wine. And I think they make it with just the yellow petals, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's not the greens or anything, because the greens or the rest of the plant is actually bitter.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I guess that's what happened. Her husband wanted to make dandelion wine, and this year just took a whole bunch of plastic bags out and picked all those yellow tops.
Yeah, they said it took them forever.
I bet. I'm also flattered as hell that Corey thinks I'm an XL. So that's killer.
Yeah, she got me the same T-shirt, but I didn't check the tag on it.
Oh, okay. Maybe you got the double XL.
I probably got the double XL. Yeah. No, so yeah, her and her husband went out and picked all these dandelion heads, and I guess he had some recipe that some guy at like the Knights of Columbus in Hornell was telling him about.
Okay.
And like it was his prize recipe that he's just passing on, I guess, because I don't know anybody that makes fucking dandelion wine.
Right.
So I think he just wanted to pass it on, and he went for it this year. He made a shitload. Did he take you out back?
No, I never went out back.
Yeah, he took me out back, and I was looking at it, and I was like, geez, dude, he had like multiple 5-gallon buckets for as far as the eye could see. It was a lot of fucking wine. But it's cool, like, and I guess it kind of feeds back into what you're doing, Eric. Is like, you know, for a lot of people, the idea of going out and doing something and making something and going through the process of making wine or raising a fucking a beefer from a calf to a full-grown cow and then slaughtering it and then butchering it and then preserving that meat in some way, or having bees. I mean, there's all sorts of things. Like, it's everything that we eat, and I think we get used to the fact that it's all processed. It's all instant for us. I mean, we just go to the store and buy it, and I'm just as guilty of that. But it does, like, when you do have, like, this dandelion wine was made by our friend's hard work.
Yes.
Your cattle is, you're taking the time to invest time and effort into making sure that not only is your cattle well fed and properly fed, but they're also happy. All your animals, I should say. And that's a very special thing that I hope as we go into the future, we obviously have to transition into, or else healthcare is going to be an overwhelming cost, because that's the price of all this, is our own health.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep. There was, I think, current healthcare is 18% of our income, and food budget is 7 to 9. Now, as little as 50 years ago, that was reversed.
Right.
Food was 18-20%, and then healthcare was 7 to 9.
And people were probably healthier, aside from smoking tons of cigarettes.
Yes,
and the advances in medicine.
And I'm not
That's
sure that
true.
it's the cigarettes that were the problem. I think it's just socially acceptable, And so, it's the judgment that's making everybody sick these days, smoking cigarettes. That's my bet.
I see you're vaping.
I do, yes.
Yeah, you guys are Vape City over here.
Yes. Where do you get yours?
Well, we're sponsored by N3 Vapor, so I go there, yeah.
That's where I go as well, N3. Yep. You can go to Wellsville or Hornell shop. This is actually, what I'm vaping now is Dragon's Milk.
Dragon's milk?
Yes.
They milked
you-
a dragon
you
for
haven't
that.
Oh my god. Well,
You know how dangerous it is to get close to the tits of a dragon?
I would be scared.
Or
But,
teats, I should say.
but no, they had the before N3 came in there. There was actually one called Mother's Milk, and that's completely edible, right? But it has like a strawberry exhale, and it's a very creamy taste, and it's all day vape. And N3 does a really good job with their line. They have quite hundreds, right?
They have
Or
hundreds of
800
flavors,
or
and they make
something?
them all there.
Yeah, right on site.
No, I'm proud to have him as a sponsor because, have you met the owner, Nick, at all?
Yes.
Or I should say Nick and Sean. I think they're co-owners now, but both great people. They care about the quality of their products. They care about their customer base. I've been a fan of them. I think I started when they opened up. It was just their Wellsville location where Napoli's or Pizza. Is it Napoli's Pizza on that side street in Wellsville?
That
I
was
think
Napoli's.
yeah.
So
That's a tattoo shop now.
it is,
Napoli shout out.
same spot.
Yeah.
So that's where they were at when they started, and I was like, man.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then
Then they moved to Main Street.
Main Street, and then got bigger, and now they own places in Olean and Hornell. If just a little plug to our listeners, if you are a vapor and you use the coupon code Brain Gravy, you get a 15% discount on all online orders.
It does not work with the coupon Brian Gravy.
No, Brian Gravy doesn't work. I do both. I still vape and I smoke. I'm trying to get off cigarettes. It's just like when you start drinking out at the bar and your buddies are.
Oh yeah.
That's all it takes.
Can't avoid it there.
Yeah. But I've completely switched to vaping at times for, 6 months at a time.
It does work though, because I've completely even quit vaping now. I hardly even once in a great while, just for shits and giggles. But
Right.
What's the nicotine?
I use 6 on mine.
Okay, I as well. Yep.
But it's interesting with him
because I backed it way down in the end, and I stopped even using flavors because I didn't like all the artificial flavoring and stuff. So I just backed it down to VG with a little bit of nicotine in the end.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That's
And
all.
yeah, that
No
was it.
flavor
And
at all.
the
for
nicotine
him.
was probably less than 1 milligram per milliliter.
Huh.
So it was. I just went down to nothing. So
And you were making all your own juice too,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I was mixing all my own juice. Yeah.
What do you do with your time now, though? Because it's the smoke.
Now I just look at it on the internet.
vape.
Yeah, it's I just quit it completely. So
Yeah.
Good
It
for
is
you.
possible.
Good for you.
thanks. I was looking for that one.
Yeah.
Fishing for that one.
I think they should make vaping legal so you can smoke in bars again, because that's the only thing that sucks about it is I get it for cigarettes. You have to go outside and smoke, and it's something I'm used to. But if you're vaping, that should be the thing to entice people to quit cigarettes, I guess, if they can smoke it indoors.
Well,
Yeah, but also at the same time, it's there's nicotine in it, so you're kind of the people who don't smoke. You're kind of
Nicotine isn't proven to be a carcinogen. In fact, it's actually proven to help brain function.
yeah. Well, yeah, it speeds up metabolism and stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's but along the same time, if someone was wearing too much cologne or something, you'd be it could bother someone with the smell. So I see
That is true. Plus, you've seen those competitions or those people that vape, and it's a whole fucking cumulus cloud coming out of
That's
their
what
fucking
you gotta
mouth.
do, man.
Yeah, that's the cool
You gotta
thing.
blow
I
the
guess.
dragons.
yeah, that just seems to be a waste of the actual vape. But
Yeah, those are just people being
no,
obnoxious.
yeah, I think that's the idea. The exhale, isn't it like a water vapor or no?
I don't know. Do you know?
I'd have to look back into it. I think largely it's water vapor.
Right.
And so, I mean, compared to what the exhale was on the cigarettes, I think it's even just the evilness of calling it e-cigarette, and then people lose their minds without actually looking at it, because you can categorize it and identify it in a second. It's an e-cigarette. Oh, that's same as cigarettes. No, you can't use it in here.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know. It's that kind of broad paintbrush. That's
I really think that tobacco lobbyists. The tobacco industry brings in a shit ton of fucking money every year. They can pay lobbyists, or lobbyists can pay fucking lawmakers a lot of money, potentially to influence people from not wanting to vape, basically. Like if it's I think there's actually a law being put through to come out in 2018 to where places like N3, and don't quote me on this, take this with a grain of salt, people, but I think what's happening is like there's something coming out in 2018 where places like N3 that are making their own e-juice can't do that anymore. So they'll no, they can't.
Oh,
so like places will have to go through a certification process to have to get their juice, and then that'll make juice more expensive.
Mm-hmm. It'll make it more expensive, but at the same time, it'll kind of regulate it, make sure it's safe, I guess, is what they're probably really wanting to do.
Right.
And make sure like kids don't get a hold of it or something. But
yeah, I mean, but is that like a problem right now? Because I mean, like vaping has been popular for like 5 years at least.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't like you don't see stories of like 13-year-old kid gets a hold of e-juice and ODs on nicotine.
There have been a couple of stories like that. That has happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people have been careless with like high nicotine juices, and kids have definitely suffered because of it. But
like, what happens if you OD on nicotine, or like what happens if you get to like your limit on nicotine?
I've never been there, so I can't really tell you. But it's pretty toxic. It's really toxic stuff. So
yeah, of course, not nicotine,
moderation.
But, yeah. Everything in moderation, right?
Except moderation.
Except moderation.
Yep.
Except for sustainable farming.
Yep. I feel like that you were kind of pushing the questions towards farming there, and then I went off the rails there. So
no. I mean, I was actually wondering. We were talking about the like lobbyists, like tobacco lobbyists, and influencing lawmakers. Do you see is there because what's the big chicken in their corporation?
There's Purdue,
yeah. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yep.
Do you think like corporations like Purdue? Do you think that they their lobbyists influence, or like people for corn is king, right? Like do you think all those lobbyists for those markets influence? I guess what you do to make it harder for people like you versus larger.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say probably for sure. That's what their job is to promote their own farming at the cost of small farmers, probably.
And I guess that would probably be keeping subsidies for corn versus.
Yeah, they would have several roles to assign one identity to and to make it sound like that's their goal is to go out and ruin small farmers. It's we can't really paint them like that because we got to work within the system. But the money talks, right? Absolutely. Yeah. And so if you have an industry that's super saturated with moneyed interest, and it depends on how far down the rabbit hole you really want to go.
Let's go deep on this motherfucker.
Okay.
Let's go really.
Like the colleges that are educating ag majors get assistance from Purdue Tyson, the land grant institutions. So they're saying that my method of raising animals isn't good.
Right.
It doesn't work. It promotes bacterial growth, or it promotes sickness. It can cross species, all that stuff. And they're teaching that. So you're taking young minds at the impressionable 18.
Yeah.
Indoctrination
18 to 20.
Yeah.
And so the thing is you don't want to look like the crazy person. So you have to use controlled language when you're talking about that. Yes, absolutely. Lobbyists affect that. Even going to a university where they say the future of milking cows is with robotics. Well, they're promoting that narrative that the kids will say, okay, if I want to be part of the future, then I've got to have robotics. And then that means basically concentrated animals, just like, with the 50 cow carousel going around milking.
Right.
Those are the only options, and they only see that as the options. But I don't think that's the case. If it were true education, they would present more forms, right?
Right.
But I'm not saying that it's a bad thing because they're accredited and that's what a kid's supposed to do. What's interesting is I've often wondered if, like, with the cost of education going up, you know, would, like, when I went to college, that was mostly, like, everybody did it, but it wasn't wicked expensive like it is now.
Right.
And so when you go there and your professor tells you that with the data that was provided by Cargill, Tyson, Purdue, whomever, Monsanto is the favorite evil.
Right.
A lot of people like to talk about. So if they're giving you the data and you're creating your reality around their data and then teaching that to the kids about what the future is, then that's the food system we're going to have. That's the food
you're
system
definitely affecting
we have.
the future. Yeah,
Right.
But it's at the level where it's not malicious because the data supports that and the professors support that and teach that. They're not trying to ruin the future. They're not
small
trying
farmers or anything. Yeah,
right. It's not.
It's just the data they have at the time, and so we probably just need more data, really, from
Right.
the data
everyone.
they consider important. And so, there is equal truths, equal data, if you will, with sustainable farming, where if a pig is on say, we give them an 1/8 acre paddock for the day, or for 5 to 7 days, it depends on their weights, okay? But if we give them that, they will ruin that landscape. It's called moonscaping, where, and I'm sure you've seen, if you've seen some pigs.
Yeah, they just wipe it out pretty much,
Yeah,
right?
and it's just like a cement floor almost out through there. That's not good for anybody. It's not healthy for the pig, the soil, or even the farmer himself. But if so that in itself is data right there.
Right.
How long is too long? Well, that's too long.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see if we can teach that or include it as an alternative into
Right.
the curriculum. So yeah,
let me ask you this: what are your thoughts on like Monsanto? Because, well, like I'll say this first. I think GMO is a really broad term and some things like, I don't know, what would be? I think I've read examples of a genetically modified organism, a crop that had been modified in such a way that I guess brown rice is considered a GMO because they put keratin in actual. They were able to put keratin in actual white rice grains or the.
okay,
right? Is that how that works?
I don't know.
I don't know.
There's
Fucking
a
take this with a
golden
grain of salt, people.
rice
That's something we have
out
to look
there.
up.
Yeah. But basically, something that Asian cultures are deficient of. I think it's keratin. I think, but again, look this up, people, if you're interested in it. But that I feel like that was an example of a good GMO. But
there are also like GMOs that don't get qualified as GMOs. Like I think they modified a mushroom, but they took a mushroom gene from like another mushroom. So like it like didn't change the genome or something, but like just slightly, but not enough to change like the definition of GMO. So
Right.
they don't have to like admit that it's a GMO, but like it makes it so the mushrooms don't bruise as easily or something like that.
so they can last longer. Yeah.
None of that information that has to do with taste or digestibility or anything like that. It's a shelf life.
Yeah, it was
It's
a
just
shelf life thing.
aesthetics.
Yeah.
It was aesthetic
And
thing,
that's
yep.
one of the things, like, just real quick, I want to just go through the semantics. So the genetically modified organism is different than genetically engineered organism, is different than line breeding, is different than hybridization. So again, rabbit hole, right?
Yep.
How deep is it? So it's the question is, do you think GMOs are bad? Define bad, evil, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Are they that? I don't think a GMO is inherently one thing or the other. It's a tool. It's available, and it should be used when it's needed. But I don't think the monoculture and the promotion of explicitly corn and soy as the only option is in the best interest for anyone.
Right.
The dead spot in the Gulf of Mexico, the farmers that are spraying the Roundup Ready corn with a spray. Even though, I mean, compared to the older chemicals, Roundup isn't that bad, but it's still. Shit, I forgot where I was going with that.
Terms of GMO and
so they're all. I don't think that it's inherently one thing or the other.
well, what are your thoughts on like Monsanto though? Do you think do you think that they are this
Think it's
evil
an evil empire? Yeah.
like who is what's the movie where Evil Corp is the that's Mr. Robot.
yeah.
Like
I haven't seen
it's a show about hacking, but I guess there's like like on these sci-fi movies, like on Fifth Element, it was the corporation that one guy runs. But I feel like people view, including myself, I feel like people view Monsanto as like this corporation that's basically using what we know about genetic modification to make products to sell to people but they're not thinking about the future and ultimately what's going to happen for the next generation. Basically, I guess. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that would be the critique of any corporation, though, when you're serving the shareholder. So So the difference between we're both critiquing them, but the difference is I want to critique the entire system, not just a corporation.
Yeah, just not a single one.
The idea that an entity they're given entity status, they're given human status. Right, a corporation, something that doesn't have a pulse. They're given human rights.
Yep,
they won't die. They can't die. So they shouldn't. So the actual Monsanto itself, I'm not going to say that they're evil or bad, because if they didn't exist, someone else would.
Right,
and you're just calling it by another name. So what we need to critique is the concept, and then go beneath that. And so the idea, so the GMO corn will usually come in two kinds. There's a Roundup Ready variety, and there's one called BT. And these are going to make up like 98% of your GMOs for corn. There could be some auxiliary ones coming through the pipeline I'm not familiar with. But with a Roundup, what it does is it's a herbicide. So basically, you would plant your corn, and then as a Roundup Ready corn grows, you go out and spray the field with Roundup. Roundup kills all living species, plant material, except
bacteria and all.
Yes, I can't give the exact which ones.
Okay,
it affects them. I don't know that it
outright
kills them.
Yeah,
but I mean, if you destroy the environment, it can't live. So is that killing it? Maybe, maybe not. But so you go through and you spray it with Roundup, spray the corn. So the corn is designed to resist Roundup, meaning the Roundup can't kill the corn. So you go through and spray. So the only thing left living is the corn. And that's brilliant and beautiful with the idea of agriculture.
Right.
The idea that, that...
It's a really great idea, but in practice...
Not thinking about the big picture, it seems brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
It gets you a hell of a crop for that year.
But to make another Jurassic Park reference...
Oh, boy.
Life will...
Life
finds a way, yeah.
Life finds a way.
And of course, after, several generations, whether that takes 10 or 20 years, suddenly Roundup Ready...
Yep,
crops don't work anymore, right?
One of them that they're doing is they're calling them super weeds and stuff, which is basically the weed that has changed. It's
adapted, yeah.
Yes, that's the word. It is actually adapted to what Roundup is, and the Roundup won't kill it.
So it's just the evolution of the plants.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah,
in real time. That's what's fascinating, though.
It really is fascinating.
Just
it's
like
only been
20,
25 years. Roundup came on the scene in about 92.
Okay.
And by 95, I think we had planted it in 95. We did it for a couple years, and I tell you, man, it's remarkable.
Right.
You go out there, you only spray one thing. All of a sudden, now you don't need to have a spray for pests, and you don't need one for broadleaf weeds. You don't need one for I'm trying to think, like 2,4-D was another spray, and you had to do them at different times. And of course, you can't spray when it's raining. It has to have time, and then it can't be above 4 miles per hour with wind. anything like that. So the farmer goes out, tills it, plants it, comes back, sprays it once, and you're good for the year.
Wow.
That is remarkable. That one of the big things I want to make sure, and I'm almost apologetic as you're saying, because my role here is to say fuck Monsanto, but I'm actually trying to turn it around.
No, go ahead.
And I'm requiring you to say fuck Monsanto, and then I'm saying no, unfuck Monsanto.
Right.
But I'll get to it eventually. I do have a fuck Monsanto card in somewhere, but we'll get it. But I want to just create a narrative first and understand why Roundup took hold. Understand why GMOs are super important. Why were they revolutionary?
Right.
It didn't just come out in the middle of nowhere. There's a reason it was important for GMOs. And then, so that's the Roundup Ready corn. The second corn is called BT corn, which is a pesticide, which is in the actual plant. The pesticide is in the plant. And so they say the worm, they did it specifically for a specific worm. I don't remember which one right now. But the idea was that the worm would take a bite, the pesticide would take a bite of the plant, and it would kill the...
Right.
So, again, could you imagine you can grow anything and not have to worry about a stupid...
Yeah, it seems like it really reduced the time like that it takes like before, and like where the old pesticides possibly, like you said, there's like kind of regulations to how you applied them.
Yeah.
So they must have been pretty
like 4 mile an hour
dangerous
to
begin with. So were they more dangerous than Roundup? You know, is Roundup kind of was that more of a harm?
One of the things that they presented at the time, and I remember my dad telling this story because I was just a smidge too young, but to understand what was going on. Well, he was saying that when they went to the classes, the instructor said you can drink Roundup, you'll get sick, but it won't kill you. Compared to the 2,4-D, compared to any of those other chemicals where it would, like if you were to drink it, there is a toxic level.
Right.
It could be similar to the nicotine level. I'm not sure where that one's at. But it's... I
mean, it's a chemical, of course.
Well, everything is toxic at some level, at some dose.
Yeah.
Even water becomes toxic at a certain dose.
Sure, yeah. And so those... So the idea with the GMOs is they had a place that come on the scene about 92, and neither Democrats nor Republicans were actually saying yay or nay on it. It just, all the legislation got passed and it was allowed.
Right.
To go right in basically food trials. It went into the food mainstream. What's interesting is, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but pretty much all European countries don't allow GMOs.
Yeah, they don't allow GMOs. Yeah,
can't be shipped in. Africa will not take food aid that is GMO.
Is that right?
Yeah, they're playing extremely safe. Yeah.
Yep. So you have to say, the fuck do they know that I don't?
I know, really.
Just that we're so gung ho that like we'll try it before we know what's going to happen. So
yeah, I mean,
they're waiting for the data first, and I guess we're the lab rats.
That's scary, man.
That's not an inaccurate statement. I mean, it hasn't been studied. It couldn't have been studied, right? So you can see why those two GMOs came on. Then they do a GMO soy. I'm not as familiar with GMO soy as I am with the corn, the two varieties of corn. So you ask, it was what it was, and it was necessary, I think, for that time of the development. Just like petroleum fertilizer was necessary in the 60s when it came in bag form. The idea that you could promote the growth of a plant without needing, say, compost or it was literally magic in a bag, right?
Yep.
You double yields, double profits.
What does petroleum fertilizer do? Because you have nitrogen, potassium, and
NPK.
Magnesium?
Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium.
Okay, phosphorus, okay.
Yep, NPK. And they'll come in different forms. You'll hear it references 10-10, 10-15, 10-20-20.
Yep.
It depends on what is going on. So if you were doing, say, oats with... oats as a top cover and putting grass back into the ground, you'd use 10-20-20 on that.
Uh-huh.
What I'm proposing with sustainable agriculture is that I can get the same yield using compost, and I can do it year after year.
Yep.
Where I don't need to add that. And the idea behind petroleum fertilizer that's in the bag is that it has to be added. It depletes or leaches, or I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for there, but it does that over time.
Does petroleum fertilizer add all the three constituents?
Yes.
And how
just those three.
Okay.
But right, I mean, so there's no way that soil is the whole world isn't NPK, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this is what I heard, and I think this is subject to change, but there's 54 trace minerals in a soil sample. Mm-hmm. NPK is one of them.
Okay.
But there's calcium, magnesium, just all of those. I'm speaking without knowing. And so
I do that all the time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So when
That's the purpose of this podcast.
So when you get to the NPK, though, that's all that they can. That's what they provide.
How is that made? Do you know?
The fertilizer
The
itself,
petroleum, yeah. Because you
I
say
know they
petroleum,
run-
is it a
yeah.
byproduct of petroleum refinement?
they run. No, I don't think it's part of the refinement. It's you get it by running gases through the material. I'm not sure if it's carbon. I don't know.
Okay.
But it needs a lot of energy.
Right.
Excuse me. It needs a lot of energy in order for that to happen.
And that came out in like the 60s when like farmers were, instead of using what you would
50s,
probably
60s,
use, so before the 60s, farmers were probably doing something similar to what you're doing as far as using the waste from actual animals and rotating crops so your soil is not being depleted of one. Because I think that's what
Yep.
crop
rotation.
rotation does, right?
Yep. That's the idea, is the crop rotation. Usually you do that on a 7-year rotation. You do
is that right?
3 of a grain, 4 of a 3 of an annual, and 3 of a perennial. Annual is it grows really quick, produces a seed. All of its energy goes to seed production. A perennial will actually go die in the fall and return in the spring on its own.
Okay.
And all of its energy goes to living, not to seed production. So
Okay.
that's the difference between an annual and a perennial. So what's common in what South America used to do really well, and they've just changed in the past 15 years going GMO route, was that 7-year crop rotation. And that was the 3 annual and 4 perennial.
But farmers here have been doing that for a long... I mean, like farmers in general have been doing that for a long time, right?
I think so. So the idea of composting actually has only been in existence since the 40s, I think. What the hell was his name? There's a guy who's called he's the father of composting. Anyways, and he did his studies in India because you get cheap labor. Back then, they didn't have front-end loaders, the idea of hydraulics. There was no pneumatics.
Right.
Or anything like that. The technology hadn't caught on. And so he did his studies at about the same time that we got into World War II, and we understood about what goes into our bombs is Timothy McVeigh, when he set
with ammonium
bomb,
nitrate, right?
he did it with fertilizer.
Yep.
And so this is what I've read a lot on, is that the actual petroleum fertilizer is tied in to the use of the war effort. Mm-hmm. So once they quit making bombs, they have all the production line, they have all the raw materials, they have everything set up. So now what do we do? Well, so what they did is they made it into fertilizer. Mm-hmm. But about the same time, though, the idea of composting was coming up. So, like, if you were to go to like those old timey Mumford Museum, I think that's Mumford, right?
Yeah, I've been there. Have you?
No, I haven't been there.
Yeah, it's like an old fashioned village from like 19th century, early 19th century.
Oh yeah.
And everything's like the there's this, like South Park did an episode on something similar to it, where you go there and all the people that work there are like, I'm Marilyn or Madeline.
I've been to something similar to
whatever.
that,
Yeah. And I've been working my farm for 30 years now. Yeah, it's like everybody's
It's
in
only
character.
1723.
Yeah, exactly. It's always 1878 at Mumford. I've been there, but I mean, so with composting.
If you went there and if we went to Mumford and there was a compost pile, that would not be historically accurate.
I got you.
The knowledge. So that's not to say that the people at the time were stupid. They knew that the cow patties and the horse patties and stuff were to be collected and treated like gold because they can put it on the garden, but they didn't understand the nuances of composting, where you need 25 parts carbon, 1 part your energy, whether it's a meat or the manure or whatever. Mm-hmm. They didn't understand those dynamics because the studies hadn't existed yet, and a lot of it's because of material handling. Yep. How can you do studies and take temperatures and stuff when you need, for a compost pile, you need an X minimum amount, or else it doesn't work. Okay, so so that came at the same time, and they both hit the market. It's just that the bombs had the weight of the U.S. government behind it with production, and of course, bombs are sexy, right?
Right.
So even though in a compost pile there's more sex going on, oh boy,
yeah, a lot of bacteria life in a compost pile, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the idea, and that's how it happens. That's how you get to the pH a neutral. So of 7, that's what you want with your compost.
Is that right?
So yes, to get that on. So they both hit the scene at the same time. And if you, again, like Jess, I want to put yourself in the mindset when GMOs first came on the scene. Could you imagine that all of a sudden you can just throw this bag anywhere on your field and you double your production? Well, of course you would do that. Why wouldn't you? You would be crazy not to.
Like you said, I'm sure people thought it was magic, and you can't blame them for thinking that.
And again, that's not stupid because they're taking the information they had at the time and have drawn a logical conclusion. You can't critique that. That's the best. That's how you want to run your life, right? You want to do the best you can with information you have.
Right. Yep.
And so that's what they were doing. So they both launched at the same time. So now we're getting further along with our technology where we understand why this ratio, say nitrogen, carbon nitrogen ratio, that's what it was, 25 carbon, 1 nitrogen.
Okay.
Is to make your optimal compost. 25 parts nitrogen, 25 parts carbon, 1 nitrogen. So you would actually bring oh shit, where was I going with that? It happened again. No, if they both hit the scene at the same time, then you can understand why you went with the with the bag instead of actually trying to handle the material, because front end loaders weren't in existence at that time. The idea of a skid steer wasn't a cheap. If you wanted a skid steer in the 60s, you know, $50,000 equivalent, $500,000 or whatever. Now it's as inaccessible to a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed entrepreneur as that carousel milking machine is to a current person. And so you're seeing that we have these truths and these relations that keep on creeping up, right?
Right.
As we keep talking about it, they keep on inconveniently showing their heads every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so with the land grant universities, with the subsidies, they keep kind of the whack-a-mole. The inconveniences are getting knocked down. And so that's where we're just getting into my idea of sustainability, why I think what I'm doing is right, is that I'm betting my future on it. I think it is. Mm-hmm. I really do. Just being the accessibility.
Yep.
So, yeah, so...
No, I absolutely agree with you, and I tell you what, man, I respect the hell out of you for it, because, like you said, I don't know anybody that is saying, you know what I want to do? I want to go out and be a farmer for the rest of my life. I think you and
I want to do it the hard way.
And I want to do it
yeah.
No one's doing that, and it's, you know, I have to. Like, I guess it's something that I've thought about but not really put a lot of thought into, is like, what the fuck is going to happen in 20 years, 30 years. You know, like I'd love to see a culture where people get back into farming, where small farmers, you know, because I mean, we've grown up in this area. How much fucking land is not being used right now? A lot of it, dude. A fucking lot of it. And how many small farms? Because like when I growing up in this area when I was a kid, you drove from here to fucking Andover, from here to Canasteel, from here to Whitesville. You drove by 4, 5, 6 minimum small farms in the way. You do that now, one maybe. You know, and like obviously that's dying off, and it's a shame because you know you have to wonder like what the fuck is going to happen in 30 years. There, like I can't believe that we're all going to be like all you know with population growth that everyone's going to be able to be sustained off these large scale farms, and if they are, then we have another problem, which is obviously healthcare. So like, do you think in your opinion, do you think it's feasible for the farming culture to come back into these areas like that we live in here on a small scale at first, and then maybe people, you know, then it gets passed on through generations again, like it had been? Like, is that something that is even possible at this point, in your opinion?
I definitely want to be an optimist and all that, but just in my opinion, no.
Yeah.
No, why?
Right.
Why would it? Why, you know, really?
It seems... I agree. That was my answer, is it seems impractical.
It'd be thankless, dirty work. Not that I'm trying to say about my own job, but if you wanted to get... I think there is a disconnect that the pendulum is swung one way. I think there is a disconnect that's going on now where people want to return to nature, return to land, but what they want to return to is the romantic ideals, the ideal in their mind.
I completely agree.
That's not what reality is. But I really want... Like, one of the things I want to do on my farm is teach as many people as possible, and I want to show them the optimism in the future. But as the industry sits right now, I don't see why a kid who's 20 years old, and let's be honest, we want the A students.
Yep,
that's what I'd prefer on my farm. I want to talk about culture and what happens in the media and all that stuff too. We're looking for certain people, but if they're not going to be rewarded, meaning a white-collar salary, even though they're doing blue-collar work, if that's not going to happen, then why would they?
And the interesting thing about that, too, is, like, growing up, and, you know, my dad talks about this, for instance. You mentioned that white-collar salary for blue-collar work. Mm-hmm. When my dad tells me at the time when he was a kid, if you were a farmer, you had a brand-new car every couple of years. You had, you know, farmers in the 70s, in the 60s, and the 50s, and in that era, they were getting the equivalent of white collar work, or payout. I believe is that right?
Yep. And there was, one of the things that I have. Yes, you're right. One of the things I struggle with is that when I talk to people, I'm often told, "Oh, wow, you're smart," and it's just like, "God damn it," you know, because obviously you were expecting something from your farmer, dude. I'm on the front lines of your soil, of your air, of your water. I'm growing your food, and you want me to be dumb?
Right? Yeah.
Holy shit!
It makes sense.
Why would the stuff you're putting in your body? Why would you want that from me? I want the best and brightest, and that's what I want. So what I'm thinking is, in the future, we can pull the grade A students back to farms,
back to farming, but
we can't do it as it sits right now. You know, with the high entry costs, there's a lot of variables involved.
Well, you know what's kind of interesting too is like because I spend a lot of my time up in Rochester, you go out to a restaurant in Rochester, like for instance, and I told this story on our last podcast. I took a girl on a date to a restaurant in Rochester called Good Luck. Super nice fucking restaurant. Really fucking nice. And I was asking them about their steaks, and what they do is they have a farmer that I think they called it single source or something like that. But they basically say they go to one farmer who is probably like you, someone that does sustainable farming, obviously does non-GMO feedstock and everything else, and they buy a single cow, it gets butchered, and then they use every part, and of course steaks go for their steaks, but every other part gets somehow used in their menu somehow, and people pay the money for that. Like my point in saying that was that there's a lot of, like, in this younger culture of, I don't know, like 20-somethings, 30-somethings, I guess you could almost call it hipster culture. But I feel like people are recognizing the value of that kind of food. People are recognizing, like, yes, it is a trendy thing. It's fun to go out to a trendy restaurant and eat expensive food and you know, I'm sure a lot of people do it because they just want to have that feeling that, like, they're helping the earth by paying a little bit extra money, and then they can brag about it on social media, you know, or an Instagram picture. But the reality exists that culture still exists right now, and it's a growing culture of people that pay the extra money to have that better quality food. Like, do you see in the future of your market, do you see, like, I guess my question is, like, do you look at that culture of, like, hipster type people and see that growing market is people that that influence what you do on a day-to-day basis, as far as, like, who you try to market to or who you try to sell your meat to? Or is it
right? So there, when it comes to the sales, people are going to find me. Right. Mm-hmm. They're going to look, as long as I make myself available with online presence and do newsletters and be accessible.
Yeah.
People are going to find me. They're going to find me for one of just a few very limited reasons. And the hipster culture, I don't think is, I don't see it, but that could be just where I live.
Right.
In the community.
Yeah. I see it in Rochester a lot.
Yeah.
I don't see it down here. You know what I mean?
The one thing is anyways, I don't want to. That'll be another question for later about hipsters. But who's looking for me? Is it health? Is it concern about the environment? Is it animal welfare? So when I have a new customer, I always try to peg that. What's their interest?
Yep.
Why did they find me? Because there's a reason for it. You don't accidentally happen up on my farm. You know,
right.
You have to purposely drive up there to get there. And so what I try to do is I try to find why they're doing it. And those, the three three or four I just listed off, those are noble reasons. The hipster culture is not a noble reason. Eating grass-fed because you're trying to impress your friends or because it's on Instagram, that's not a noble pursuit. And by
but it has to be a large percentage of Like it is a significant amount of your customer base or people that are doing similar things to you, their customer base.
They might be one or two sales, but how long can you sustain that? Because if you're by definition care what people think of you, you'd be on to the next thing once it becomes in vogue. You know, so you would only do the grass-fed beef once or twice, one or two times, and you would buy a steak, you know, or a pound of ground. What I need and what I want on the farm and what I want from my customers is to come back more than once.
Right.
To buy their meat from me because I'm providing a clean product.
Right.
Without I don't outsource any of my costs. So again, with the subsidies, with Rhode Island size, dead zone, all that, none of my costs are outsourced. Mm-hmm. So they have so the reasons they're coming from me are noble reasons that they will come for years and years and years.
So who is your average customer then?
Usually, average customer, I would say you're looking for about 28 upwards to 70, anywhere in there. The people, a lot of it is health concern. A lot of it, not many of it is animal welfare, even though that's a nice auxiliary item. So those are reasons that they would come. The average customer, though, I would say for me today, case in point, it was a younger couple. They came and bought $80 worth of grass-fed meats from me.
Okay.
And so he's probably 30. He's a young professional. He's still traveling right now. Like, they sent him to China several times throughout the year. And she's a young professional. She does yoga. And they have opened their home to foster children, but not one that's going to stay for a long time, just like the ones that are in and out in a month or something. And could you imagine doing that? No three of us here are that noble. We're way too selfish to do that. And to
well, I don't know. Maybe we can get some new podcast guests.
I always consider getting a foster child just to rank up my
Pokemon?
my game characters when I'm at school or at work.
Yeah,
I can stay home and just rank up my Fallout character. I'm joking. No, you're right. A lot of people want to do that. So this couple takes those people in.
So you can understand their mindset is different than you or me or anyone else. And part of their mindset, part of their values, part of who they are as humans is the food they eat contributes to the house, to their job, to them providing an environment for other underprivileged people that didn't get a steady home or something.
Right.
So those are the kind of customers I want. Those are the kind of customers I really tend to attract. The people that are looking for the cheapest price, they're not going to get it here.
Right.
Because I don't think having the cheapest price is a noble pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's worth
You have to cut
your
too many
time.
corners to make it that price.
Yep, and you'd be willing to cut those corners.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
the intent.
Yep, and so they're a younger couple. Usually, you'd have some families. A lot of times, we'll get somebody with a child that can't have their sensitivities, their stomach. They will literally be physically ill if they have regular meat from a store. And the doctors have told them you have to have grass fed.
Right.
Okay. And then another type of customer.
God, how lucky. You can only eat grass fed beef.
Yeah.
You only have to pay.
I know. I wish I didn't have the option.
The last customer would be somebody who comes to me through fear. And I don't really like that, but I mean, I like the customer. I just don't like that it was fear driven, because that's not a way to, for your consciousness to go through life. But the pink slime scare, remember that? That was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
They weren't showing anything that doesn't happen. It happens. That's what it is.
Right.
But I think we picked up 5 families from that.
No shit.
Yeah, people were just like, that's in my food. So they increase their awareness, and they're just like, I don't want to participate. And so the challenge then is, once you have somebody motivated, you have to give them a reason to stay motivated, to stay coming back.
Right.
To meet me at the farmers markets or do the deliveries or wherever. How am I going to get the product to you? How am I going to get the meats there? And so, I hope that kind of answers the question.
No,
I
for
think
sure.
Of who is your customer? What I think, you would say 28 to 45 is ideal, but I don't think that's anymore. Basically, you got to get them out of the dumb. You got to get them. I'm trying to be sensitive here.
Don't.
So, when you're in college, you're retarded, and you're still learning. And are you in college? God damn, I'm sorry. Yeah. So if I can,
I get what you're trying to say though. You're
goal
still in that mode where you're trying to do stuff as like you're
And you
still
don't
kind
know
of
yourself.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
still figuring things out. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm
Yep.
saying. Like this culture of people, like the hipster culture. I don't think it's a bad thing that they're spending the extra money to buy this food. I just think, like, I guess in my mind, you just have a culture of people who are a little bit more aware of, a couple years ago, I seen this video that was passed around social media of the way Purdue treats their chickens, and it was fucking monstrous.
Awesome.
It was disgusting. It was, and I will not buy Purdue chicken now. I tried to buy my chicken from Stearns, which is a local place.
Oh, yeah.
And they seem to know what they're doing. I'll probably start going. I didn't
Super
know you
good.
did chicken. I'll probably start going to you now.
Well, Stearns is they're
They're
yummy.
great. Yeah.
So yeah,
But they also know how to treat their animals. But I didn't start doing that until I seen the way those practices were for Purdue Farms were being
so there was
done.
an animal welfare issue with from you. The thing is those maybe you had to get to a certain age or something, but those practices have always existed. And it's across all thresholds, but with the animals, it's most egregious. But they're having ag-gag laws now, which means that you can't take a video.
Yeah, you can't take the video. Yeah, it's illegal to take the video in those places. Yeah,
in there. So the question isn't why can't you take a video camera? The thing is, why would somebody
Lobbyists.
those damn
stop
lobbyists?
that?
Yeah.
And here's the thing about that is I'm sure those lobbyists are going to people and saying, well, what are you going to do if these places don't exist? How are you going to feed this many people? I'm sure those lobbyists are saying, and they're probably right in a way.
Actually, the lobbyists are probably saying, here's a bunch of money.
They're saying that, but I mean, I'm sure they're also saying, like, this is how you can feel morally right about taking this money. How the fuck are you going to feed 300 million people in the United States? How the fuck are you going to feed this many people in one area? And they're probably right to a degree. But my point
to it,
my point in saying that was that there's and I'm one of them. There's a lot of people that watch that video and say, you know what? I'm not going to buy fucking Purdue chicken anymore. There's a lot of people that see a PETA video of how animals are treated in general and say, you know what? I'm going to be a vegan or I'm going to be a vegetarian. But there's a huge subculture of people now, and they're all younger for the most part.
Okay.
And they're saying to themselves, you know, I'm going to try to be a better, think about where my food's coming from. And I guess I'm just curious, and you did answer it as far as do you see those kind of people coming to you to buy food because it's part of their culture to think about where their food's coming from versus think about where think about where it's coming from versus thinking about their health in general. I mean, I'm sure that's definitely a thought in the process, but
there must be. I know, if you'd seen the movie Food Inc., there's now another critique is like the sugar where there's fed up. I mean, there's a lot of documentaries that are covering the food that is leading to our 18% health care.
Right.
18% of our income going to health care. So there is more of awareness. And what I said earlier I may be wrong. That might not have been a valid statement. I haven't seen it personally, but that could be just where I'm located.
Right.
That's not to say that doesn't exist. And so I was probably wrong.
Yeah, you should try to go up to
Yeah.
Rochester and market to these restaurants.
Well, I do deliveries to Pittsford and Fairport, southeastern Rochester. Home deliveries. We do that every other week. And basically you go online and look through the inventory, and the inventory changes. Inventory is real time, so if you order a pound of ground beef, it ticks down from my inventory list.
No shit.
Yep. And speaking of technology, that software, the software I use is George Duggan, Eat from Farms. Mm-hmm. He's an awesome guy. The software he's providing did not exist 4 years ago. It did not exist because I looked for it. I looked for it 6 years ago. I looked for it 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, I paid a guy $2,000 to build me a website where the inventory can at least be semi-real time, where I can change it on 24-hour basis. I don't have the faculty to write code.
Right.
That's something I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is another language, right? And it is
absolutely a language.
another language.
Yeah.
And it's something I don't want to take the time about. I'm not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't do it. So 5 years ago, I paid a guy to do it. George came on a scene 4 or 3 years ago with this software where it's plug and play, where I just write in descriptions, weights, how it's measured, all that stuff, and we're live.
Yep.
You know, excuse me. So that stuff is just coming to the scene. It'll be interesting to see what happens when it's in for another 5 years, another 10 years.
Well, that's one thing I was pleasantly surprised about. Like when you were talking about coming on the podcast, you know, I do a little bit of research beforehand, probably not as much as I should.
Prove it.
Right here, this is my sheet.
Oh yeah, you got a sheet.
And it, you know, I go to your Facebook page. Everything's up to date. That's usually where you see it stop with a lot of people because social media takes fucking time for everybody. I don't care how fucking it takes a lot of time for my fucking podcast. Put out one episode a week. You know what I mean? There's all these local stores and restaurants. If they're not utilizing social media, they're fucked.
Definitely.
Yeah. Social media is a big part of it. When you say, okay, I have a website, and I went to your website and I was like, this is a fucking nice website. This looks very legit. I mean, it's not that I wasn't expecting it, you know, from you or anything like that. It's just
that's
you think about a small farm in Rexville.
Yep.
You don't think that they'll have a very nice looking website
or
that is
small
very easy to navigate.
General, yeah.
I mean, it's easy, and you're right. It's very easy to navigate.
Yes,
you go on there, you can order it, and there's all this information for someone like me that says, you know, like I'm interested, but what else? You know, give me all the information about this before I invest my hard-earned money into it. All that information is there. So I definitely think you're doing that part of it right, and that's an important part. Social media is not to be, you know, taken lightly. It can make it can make or break a lot of people in a lot of different businesses.
That's and I do the same thing when I judge other businesses.
Yep.
And stuff. Like right now, my newest fascination or interest has been yoga. Believe it or not, old brittle bones here trying to do yoga. It's fun. It's interesting. And
yoga's great for you. Super healthy.
It gets the idea though is to get your control of your mind.
Yep.
Right. To know that you can control it.
Mm-hmm.
Just let it go willy nilly. And so the first things I'm looking for, yoga, Hornell, New York. Yoga, Wellsville, New York.
Yep.
Fuck, do I have to go to Corning to get a yoga? You know.
Right.
And so, but I haven't made the move yet on actually going to classes or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of the meditation, the idea of directly making yourself go once a week to a 1 hour class that requires you to do the movements in the center of your mind as best as possible.
Yep.
So, and the only way I can access that is to go through an online search to see what I'm looking for. So when you Google grass-fed beef, Steuben County, I better be on
number one. Yeah.
Yeah. If not, then I need to do more writing. I need to get more published. I need to get out there where the name is found.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And what you brought up earlier, though, with the idea that the social media, how exhausting. There's an inherent narcissism in social media, and it goes against a farmer's intuition because we're supposed to be humble.
Humble, yeah.
Even going back to that shitty Dodge commercial, it wasn't a shitty Dodge commercial. It was a good Dodge commercial in the Super Bowl from a couple years ago, whereas God made a farmer. And dude, I still read that, you know, and they did it perfectly with the imagery, the black and white, and then people with like wrinkles, and then the baby calf and all that. It was killer. Whoever did that is on their game.
Yep.
You know, and it evoked emotion from a 30-second, 45-second commercial.
Right.
You know, at the end, you put a Dodge out there. Guess what I drove up tonight in? A motherfucking Dodge. So maybe, you know, but there's this inherent narcissism with it, and I'm trying to overcome it. I haven't quite got there because even on my like personal Facebook pages, I don't do it. The Sugar Haven page, I included a picture of myself because when I go to a Facebook page, I want to see the person. I want to see what they represent. I want to see how they're going through life, how they're dealing with their identity, their place in the world.
Right.
I want to see all that. And I noticed one on my website, Sugar Haven, is that it's not on Facebook, is that it's not actually, there isn't any pictures of humans in there.
Uh-huh.
And it's there's a lot of really good pictures in there, like with the animals and beautiful foggy mornings and just pretty trees in the fall, all that. But there isn't a human connection.
Yep.
And so I was like, all right, you can do it. And
You
so
can start putting pictures. of
you can
yourself
go
up
and
there.
check it out on
Duck face. You can start putting the duck face up.
Oh God, but it's a picture.
Start doing selfies. Like,
Yeah. But there has to be that connect, and I'm getting the back of my ears are getting warm. I'm all fucking embarrassed talking about.
You can make your own Dodge commercial. This is it.
Holy shit, the potential is endless. I took a picture, and I just got the new truck. I traded in an old Dodge for a newer Dodge, and even in my description, I'm apologizing for my vanity. So that's how much you have to but the idea is that you're selling yourself, you're selling the product, you're selling the who, what you are. And that's what I noticed I was short on.
It's just an interview.
Oh God, is what that picture. And so I've debated like 80,000 times whether to put it up or put it down. Take it down,
shit.
and it has like over 800 views or some horse shit like that.
Right.
And again, I'm getting all fucking, my ears are getting hot just talking about it. But that's wicked important for social media.
Yeah.
I have to feel, again, this goes back to me looking for yoga studios, is I have to feel like I know the person, we have a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I do that by seeing you in your environment, seeing your environment, and then seeing what makes you tick.
Right.
Like on my Sugar Haven on the Facebook page, there's a shitload of pictures of the dog.
You guys serve dog
Everybody
there?
likes dogs, though. And if they don't, you don't want them as a customer.
Yeah, and my dog, he's a handsome guy. He's I call him he's a handsome devil. But so like my customers, though, you'll see that. I'll see that on when they put in orders. There's a comment section they can, and I've had it more than 20 times where people say hey to Bub for me.
Oh, is that right?
My dog's name is Bub because I'm an unoriginal
That's cool.
bastard.
Right.
But so, and I'll do pictures of that, like Bub looking majestic. That's the picture, and people respond.
That's what you want on social media. That's it right there.
Yep.
Dogs are pretty popular. Have you
respond to it.
ventured into like Instagram or anything like that yet?
I haven't.
You haven't? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, I know. Instagram.
It's just Facebook with pictures.
It's all picture
pictures,
based.
yeah.
But I don't think you'll do well on it because you have to have a strong touch of narcissism.
Oh yeah,
to excel on Instagram.
Instagram.
Which I'll admit, I definitely have narcissistic tendencies. I keep them in check by recognizing them.
Have somebody to help you.
You just send all the
It's
photos
fine.
on Snapchat, and then
Well, what I do on Instagram is like I did it the other day. I was out to breakfast with my girlfriend, and we were eating. Like we went to Glen Edith Coffee, and
Where's that?
it's up in Rochester.
Okay.
It's like they roast their own beans. It's a really
cool.
It's an upscale coffee place. They sell their breakfast. They sell breakfast stuff there, and I think lunch stuff too, actually. And it's really like I paid fucking $8 for a fucking like a breakfast sandwich, but it had like peppers on it and bacon and all.
How do you juxtapose that identity with this identity here? Do you live here?
I live here in Greenwood, but
Right. And then you go up there and
you're buying $8 breakfast sandwiches.
Isn't there some part of you that's just like, oh God, I just spent $8 on this sandwich?
for sure. Now let me justify that a little bit.
But then he puts the picture on Instagram.
Yeah, like let me justify that a little bit. The quality of all their ingredients, high quality.
Gotcha.
It's a,
Not
like
getting a Cisco truck.
yeah, like I'm sure they buy all their food from people like you, basically.
Yeah.
All their meats from people like you, and then all their vegetables from local farmers too. Their coffee is made in a really, like, if you're like a coffee nerd, you would like get off on this. But what they do is like they make their coffee like using like water that is at a specific temperature, like 2 degrees below boiling. It's this whole thing, but it's like a fancy coffee shop.
I'm actually wearing a
very
coffee shop
hipsterish.
T-shirt right now
Oh, look at that.
from Chicago.
Nice.
Fancy.
But the food is good, but you also go there for the experience. Like, you go there because it's a very nice environment. The food is not only like a high quality level of food, but it's very well presented. And the coffee there is fucking amazing. The food is one thing. I'll grant it, $8 for a fucking breakfast sandwich is ridiculous. The coffee, worth every fucking cent. A good cup of, I mean, it is the best cup of coffee that you'll ever have in your life. And you know, and I don't know what I drink drip coffee every fucking day. I drink Folgers, for Christ's sake.
Some days I drink instant coffee.
Yeah. I'm not a coffee snob, but I will say that when you go there and pay $3.75 for a cup of coffee, that fucking flavor is worth it. It is fucking good. No other way around it.
You said something in there though. You said you go there for the experience.
Experience,
and that has value.
Yeah.
So
value, yeah.
And so I put you on blast, and I said, "What? How do you justify that with your juxtaposition to where you're at here? You did it. Kudos."
Yeah, I mean, you know, do I have the kind of money to do that every fucking day? No. Do I treat myself? You know, treat yourself like that, like once or twice a month? Absolutely. And that's cool. Where I'm at right now. But what I was going to say back to the Instagram is like one thing that I do, and you got to be narcissistic a little bit to do this, is like you take a photo of your delicious meal and then you put it on Instagram and then you do hashtags like hashtag breakfast, hashtag Glen Edith coffee, hashtag all this shit. And because of the hashtags, people that also hashtag shit or like will search like what's people hashtagging coffee right now, and they'll see your picture and like it. And it's really interesting to see how far your breakfast image goes across the world. I think I was telling you this. I don't know if I was. Last week I had waffles for breakfast there, and coffee, and I did hashtag.
This is the one where Jamie Kennedy liked it?
Jamie Kennedy liked 2 of the photos that I posted.
He liked your breakfast?
Wait,
he liked my breakfast photo. Yeah,
that's a comedian, right? Jamie Kennedy?
Yeah, he had the Jamie Kennedy show on Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Jamie Kennedy experience.
And I was telling him, I'm just like, you're not going to believe this. Jamie Kennedy liked 2 of my fucking photos here on Instagram. And it's a weird interaction to have with the outside world, I'll grant you. And there's like, for my, the episodes of this podcast, I'll hashtag all sorts of shit just because I'm just
fishing. You're
doing
fishing for
everything to get listeners to this podcast.
Marketing.
So I'll hashtag like hashtag LA, hashtag Seattle, hashtag
Just put
Rochester, hashtag fucking iTunes, hashtag local, hashtag indie. You can do up to 30 hashtags.
Hashtag coffee table. Hashtag baby head.
Yeah, exactly. You can have up to 30 hashtags on Instagram before Instagram won't allow the posts anymore.
Why would... Because I don't do Instagram. I do Facebook and understand its importance and website. Why would I, as a living, breathing human being, care or want to look at somebody who did hashtag Chicago?
I tell you what,
is it killing time?
It is killing time.
Yeah.
I'll do it all the time. Like
because you're not getting educational value by looking at somebody else's waffles, right?
No, but it turns me on the shit.
But he does it, and a lot of people do it.
A lot of people do it. Yeah, like
he looks at waffles all day.
Shit.
He loves waffles.
I don't look at waffles all day.
We're not judging you. Holy shit!
No,
you got
like
defensive.
Waffles,
what a defensive motherfucker!
I do like waffles.
That's okay. We're not judging. This is a judge-free environment. If we learned anything from Trump, it's to not judge.
I'll give you a good example. I do hashtag podcast on my Instagram posts, and I search other I'll click the hashtag podcast thing, and it pulls up all the posts of other people that have done hashtag podcasts. And I actually got turned on to a new podcast that I'm listening to right now.
Is it about
What's
waffles?
the name?
It's about waffles. So weird that you brought that up. No, it's a very small, like very weird podcast from like 3 people in their early 20s out in LA. It's called the Mean Boys, which is a really weird name
for the LA.
Yeah,
The
Mean Boy, and it's a super tiny podcast, and I listen to. I've actually been watching their YouTube posts. I haven't listened to any of the podcasts yet, but their YouTube posts are basically the same thing. And I like the fact that I'm watching content that is on the level of mine, where it's like people that are just trying to fucking make it past this barrier of like what this is basically, which is like a small podcast that's trying to get to that next level of fishing for fucking listeners. I think it's really interesting.
Trying to figure out what people want to hear.
Yeah, and when you search that kind of content, you start you start to get like there's something special about something very crude. And a good example of that would be like Wayne's World, right? The reason everybody liked Wayne's World in the Wayne's World universe is because it was like local access television. It was two guys in their basement bringing on fucking weird guests like the fucking furniture store guy and fucking, just it was interesting from that level. And I think people love local access television. They've always liked local access television for that very reason. And there's just something interesting about it. So like when you're searching these very small podcasts, like I listen to, like you're a big podcast listener, right?
Oh yeah, love them. Yep.
I listen to a lot of big podcasts. So I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and I listen to Legion of Skanks. They're a big podcast out of New York City. All of the podcasts I listen to for the most part are
Jay
comedian.
And
I love that podcast. Yeah. And they're big time. Joe Rogan's especially. Joe Rogan has one of the top podcasts in the world right now. Oh, yeah. Arguably,
he's got it down.
Yeah, and and that's one level. It's really fun to listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson or fucking Graham Hancock or all these people come onto his podcast. But then there's something very unique about the Small Time podcast that has its own allure to people like me who seek it out.
Interesting.
And the only way I can find that what are you going to search on Google? Like small podcasts, like
small time.
But
podcast,
what you can do is search the hashtag in Instagram and see people that are trying to make it by putting their by hashtagging their episode, and that's how you get it like. Me.
It seems like it's in vain or for vanity, but it serves a purpose. Yeah,
this is so educational. This is something I've never thought about, never considered. As far as like how you did a circuitous route to why you look at each hashtag.
Yeah,
but the Small Time podcast, do you find gems in each podcast, or do you have to sift through a lot of shit to find the pony?
That's a good question. I appreciate it for what it is for the most part because I know what goes into this, and I know like, and that's what I tell people. If you're going to listen to my podcast, please don't start on episode 1. Please start on the latest episodes because they only get better.
Benjamin Button that stuff.
I was thinking,
go start on the latest and go backwards.
I was thinking for this podcast, start like 35 minutes in. Yeah.
Yeah,
this is a good podcast.
It takes time to warm up, get familiar. And
okay, so maybe it was the wine, but
oh yeah,
yeah.
Speaking of which,
no, I've been enjoying this whole podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks Corey again.
But sometimes, like you do kind of sift through stuff. Like there's like I don't know. I guess I found stuff like that I've listened to for about 20 minutes and said I'm done with this, but. That's sort of the same thing. It's interesting. A podcast that I listened to today, who run by Will Moyer. He's been a regular guest on here. He has a podcast called "Why Do You Care," which is about TV shows and movies. And I listened to it. I was listening to an episode today, and with the co-host Katie Allenson was talking about a book. If you read 25% of a book and you don't like it, toss the motherfucker. Like you're not obligated to read the whole fucking book. And in her mind, reading 25, if you don't like it by 25% in, don't fucking read the rest. Okay, you don't fucking get it. You know what I mean? And I was listening to it
way before 25%.
Same here, but I was listening to it. I was like, you know what? You're right. Like I've read books all the way through and said, why the fuck did I read that? Like that's been a waste of my time. I was waiting for to justify all this shit, and I've had some books that just don't fucking pan out. But I guess without thinking about it, I do the 25% rule with books anymore. And the same goes for podcasts. I'll listen to podcasts if I don't like the first 20 minutes of it. I'm not going to force myself through the other hour and a half of it. Like I'm not obligated. Yeah. So I don't know. It's all about who you are as a person too. Like some of the top podcasts on iTunes right now aren't this format. There's Serial is one of the top podcasts, and that's
I've tried that.
Totally, I like it. I like the one this season, but it's a totally different format. So some of the other shows, the highly produced NPR podcasts, like
On the Media, they had a 5-part series on poverty in Ohio.
On the Media, the Media is a good one,
and I just listened to that. Radio Lab, I think, is like
Love
the
Radio
best
Lab.
one out there. They go crazy with the voiceovers and stuff like that, but it's killer.
Yeah, Radio Lab is probably the best example of a very highly produced podcast that is always up there on the iTunes
it's
fucking
fascinating
top 10
content, though. That's the thing.
Oh, dude, there was a Radio Lab episode that fucking brought me fucking close to tears one time. It was about. They had the astronaut, Chris Hadfield. Is that what his name is?
Yes.
Yep. Canadian astronaut. Yep.
Did you listen to that episode with Chris Hadfield on it? Anybody here?
Is that
No,
the
I
one
didn't.
where he did the song? Chris Hadfield has
different one.
He has a good
played
social
guitar
media
space,
presence, so I've seen Chris Hadfield
He
probably
really
a dozen
revolutionized
times.
it, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know about that Radio Lab
It
specifically.
wasn't that one. The one in the Radio Lab was talking. The Radio Lab wasn't about Chris Hadfield, but what they were talking about had something to do with what he could speak to. And he told this story about when he was fixing something on the International Space Station. And of course, when you're on the ISS, you rotate. Your rotation around the Earth is different from our rotation around the Earth.
Isn't it like 17 sunsets? And
I think it's you rotate it once every 90 minutes. Does that sound right?
that does sound right.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I can't do basic math.
So you're going from dark.
70,000 miles an
You
hour.
have 90 minutes of dark. You have 90 minutes of light. So, or maybe it's the other way. You have 90 minutes of dark and light, something like that. But it's not much time.
Yeah.
Right.
So like he's outside of the International Space Station and he's fixing something, and he goes from a light. He goes from being in the light to being on the other side of the Earth where it's completely dark, and he has to take a break. So NASA is talking to him through his comms and says, just you have so many minutes to just chill before we come back around and you're back in the light again. You can continue to tinker with this shit outside of the International Space Station. So he was telling this story where he's in a spacesuit and he has so much time to just float. He's floating with the ISS. Yeah. He's just out there floating in fucking space. And it's completely dark. And what he does is he turns off all the lights on his personal
helmet or
on his helmet, on his person, basically. So it's completely dark, and he turns himself around, and he's tethered, so there's no danger.
Sure.
He turns himself around, and he's basically floating in infinite fucking blackness. But it's not blackness, because when you're out in space and you don't have light pollution, there's so many stars. Yeah. There's so many stars without light pollution, it will blow your fucking mind. It's basically like this fucking lit with stars.
Right, just like if you see pictures when they took on the moon missions, you don't see any stars in the background because they're being hit with sunlight.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Yeah. So he's floating in pure space, pure dark space, but he's basically just looking at billions, if not trillions of fucking stars.
Interesting.
In this cathartic experience that he had, floating there in space, looking at these stars, and he's telling this story. And I'm telling you, the way he describes the way he thought about his life, the way he thought about everything in his reality.
This was on Radio Lab.
I
have to listen to that one.
It choked me up and for no reason other than like, I guess maybe I want that experience, that
sure
fucking cathartic experience of just it. I'm sure it humbles you. It has to humble you as a person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I was listening to him say that.
Instagram that shit afterward.
Yeah.
Then you're back. Yeah.
And Hadfield definitely did that shit.
But
motherfucker.
all right, so
Hadfield was great though.
Oh, dude, you were on a killer rant. And
Oh,
then I
yeah,
just
we
said
just-
that.
that was
So-
that was the end of the story.
Sorry about that. Yeah. How do you ruin the buzz?
I actually, I was telling someone this story recently. I had a similar experience before I'd heard that podcast, and it's, I don't know. I guess it relates to it in a little bit of a way, but I was I had a really cathartic experience looking at the stars once too. When I went to a concert at Bethel Woods, which is where they had the original Woodstock in '69 down by New York City, and I was at this concert and I was having a really good time. Concert was over with, and there's this place that's kind of above where you can see the stadium, and you can walk to it. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's basically like this kind of cliffside that is part of the concert area, but you kind of have to walk to get to it. And I had just got done seeing these couple bands. I was pretty fucked up, in all honesty. I was really fucked up, actually. Having a good time, not like bad fucked up, having a good time. And me and the people I was with, we walked up there and we laid down. It's kind of like a meadow, and it's in Bethel Woods is out in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of light pollution. And I can remember I laid down in that meadow and I was looking up at the sky and I seen all these stars, and I don't know, it was a kind of a defining moment in my life, because it was just one of those moments where I realized how short life is, I guess, and how little I am as a person, and how meaningful the small things in life can be. And like sometimes when I get caught up in like waffles, like thinking about how important my fucking waffle Instagram pictures are, it is good to have that reality check of like, do you remember when you realized that like you weren't the center of the universe, when you realized that like
big moment,
your life is fucking short, you know what I mean? And like,
and that happened. That was going to be my question. I wasn't sure which way you're going with that. Did that cause introspection, or did it make you feel big or small, like looking up in that metal? Because it can go either way, and it depends on what you use.
Yeah.
What the drug of choice is for that.
It was very introspective,
and so you realize,
I was very lubricated for that particular mindset. Let's say, but actually, it came about because like I grew up being very, I guess I'd say, religious. I went to a Methodist church and played trumpet every fucking Sunday and was part of the church all my life.
The church has a trumpet. That's crazy.
I played trumpet for Miss Rollins. You know Miss Rollins.
Yeah, June.
And I was fine with it. You know what I mean? I was my parents or my whole family's still religious. And then after high school, I guess because of the internet, because of documentaries that I watched on TV, I started questioning like, hey, like I have a mindset for science. That's why my degree is in engineering and I love fundamental science. And I guess I was at a time in my life where I just started my degree and I was just learning about chemistry and physics and calculus and all this shit, and I was having trouble tying together what I know about religion with what seems to me to be very obvious with science. And it was troubling to me because like you think you're going to go to fucking hell if you don't, like these thoughts that I'm having.
If you don't play trumpet on Sunday. These
thoughts that I'm having about like, questioning if all this shit is real or fake, or if it's all just one giant story versus what I'm learning, this science that I'm learning. Like, how do I make those two fit? And I can't. So I was basically, it was the beginning of me basically becoming agnostic or atheist, whatever you want to call it. I don't find anything wrong with religion, and I think that there's some very metaphysical states that you can't measure of science. But the reality is that I don't believe in organized religion. I don't believe in Christianity or any of that bullshit, or any of that stuff. Rather,
you can swear on this one.
Yeah. So it was like, that was a moment in my life where I was like, I just was able to say, you know what, like, it's not important because like my life is very short. I'm a very fucking small part of this much bigger universe.
You're a small cog in a great machine.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard. You can't describe a super big life moment in a couple sentences and make it make sense to everybody. But that was a moment, I guess, thinking about Chris Hadfield's experience, that I kind of connected on that level as far as like looking at the universe and then having that be an introspective
it's a very
look inside myself.
Very primal sort of perception.
Absolutely.
Had you had the opportunity to do shrooms yet?
Well, I can't really say that on this podcast.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay.
He can't prove or disprove it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to.
He's had Bellas and shiitakes.
Yeah. No.
Shiitakes. Yes.
I've definitely. I mean, I guess I can say I don't like. I'm not. I'm just. I don't really know. Like, want my employers to hear this, but
I got you. So
I don't.
That wasn't a fair question.
No, I mean, I don't have a problem saying it. Actually, like in my past, have I tried psychedelic mushrooms? Absolutely.
Yep.
They're some of the best experiences of my life, leading up to very introspective and personal, I guess, moments. You know what I mean? I don't know any other way to describe them, I guess. So that's what it takes for some people. Some people it takes years of meditation, but I don't know. It's medication, but it's hard to really put that experience to actual words that are meaningful to the person that has never tried them before.
Right,
I guess.
Right. To show its value.
Yeah. What about you? Have you ever tried psychedelic mushrooms or anything on that level?
I've done I guess my little rule of thumb, if you will, would be try to keep it organic.
Right.
So I'm not really interested in trying, like, say, LSD. Actually, I have interest in trying. I probably won't. But with the mushrooms,
I would just stick with mushrooms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've never tried it.
LSD lasts way too fucking long.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
With the mushrooms, though, it was
those damn bananas.
So interesting and fun, and I'm happy so my trip part of that was you know how, like, when you're wicked tired and you're getting ready to fall asleep and your body slowly relaxes?
Yeah.
And it's like almost orgasmic how you just, oh, thank God.
Right.
The worries start melting off, and so I kept on almost falling asleep for like an hour and a half. It was awesome. And then like the living room turned into a quilt. Like there was a quilt pattern in the living room. So like I was sitting in this comfy chair and I was nice and warm and snug, and I kept on almost falling asleep for an hour and a half in the room that was a giant bed, right?
Yeah.
That was my trip. Getting to it where you've actually poisoned yourself. Right. Because that's what the fuck you're doing.
That's what's happening.
You know. So the point where I poisoned myself, there was a good 20 minutes where it was like, oh God, oh
right.
no.
What have
the
I
anticipation
done? That was just a whimpering jackass. And then it's just like, well, other people are high, so they're fine. I'll be all right.
Yeah, group mentality.
You know?
Everyone else is fine. I'm okay too.
But then what if you're not? You know, but
the doubt will creep
so
in.
the trip was fun. And at that time, I remember it was winter break between semesters, and I still hadn't completed the final for one of my English classes. That was the semester I took 5 English classes, 15 credits.
Jesus.
Of English. I wrote over 300 pages of just literary analysis, and it ruined me for English. It ruined me for writing. I'm starting to get over it now, and just in the past few years, but it burned through everything. And so I still had that one paper left, and it was just a matter, I know the formula, I can fire it out, I can do it.
Right.
But you got to do it. And so I remember there, and so I had that existing in the back of your conscious there. It's just like, well, you didn't do it on time, you're a failure. Now, the what is it? It's that disorder imposter disorder, where it's just like, well, maybe I don't belong or something like that. You have
Right.
all those feelings. Then did the shrooms that night, and it was weird because that became another world.
Right.
Just like you saying, go ahead and walk on the moon. Like I'm imagining that now. It's a different world. I can kind of imagine that.
Right.
That's what the essay became in my mind. It was another world. I could kind of imagine it, but it has nothing to do with reality.
Right.
And I would recommend for everybody, I think part of being a healthy teenager and part of being a healthy young adult is to experience and experiment, know your limits, the only way you can find the limits is to go over the line, right?
Right.
Yeah.
How do you know the line's there
Just don't
unless
go
you
too
step
far over the line.
over?
Right.
Small steps.
Sometimes you can. Sometimes that happens, and then you become a lesson for other people.
Right.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
and there's value in that too. Mm-hmm. But what they, I think part of healthy development, you should at least try marijuana. You should at least try a psychedelic of some
Right.
sort, and then in this case, socially acceptable is drinking. So because it's socially acceptable, you should try that to understand who you are.
The thing about it is, like, between the difference between like drinking and doing something that's psychoactive, like marijuana or mushrooms or LSD, or there's a whole bunch of them. The difference is like, and why I'm a very big advocate for the psychoactive variety over alcohol is like. Alcohol, I mean, we're drinking right now. I'll drink alcohol till the day I die, but we all know how stupid you can fucking act on alcohol.
Yes.
God damn, defining stupid moments in my life.
Yes.
The difference between psychoactive stuff like smoking pot or doing mushrooms is I think it allows you to grow as a person.
It's a little more introspective.
And like you grew up around
Yep.
here. There's, you grow up in areas like this, and it's like, You're just in contact with a lot of like racism, as of late, xenophobia, a lot of bigotry in general.
Sure.
And you can become
Not to say that doesn't exist everywhere.
Yeah, but in areas like that are not
poverty.
like rural areas, it could be a little bit more prevalent. But you get inundated with that, and like that shit sinks into your head. And then, like, it might just take like one fucking, deep trip before you realize, like, you know what? Like, I realize that, not all Muslims are fucking terrorists. Like, maybe I was fucking wrong
I just needed a few mushrooms to
about
realize
using
that
the
one.
word fucking stand. What I'm not going to say the word, but
Yeah.
like using these words. Maybe I was fucking wrong for that. Like maybe.
Yep.
Like, that the Muslim guy that runs that store down the way, he's always been pretty nice to me. Maybe I was wrong for treating him like shit all these years.
Sure.
You don't have those fucking moments drinking fucking alcohol.
No.
You have those moments fucking when you're
yeah.
stoned out of your fucking gourd, and you say to yourself, why was I such a fucking shithead to that person? Or why have I been thinking these fucking thoughts when there's no basis in reality for them? Like,
Sure.
you're right. Like, I think, like, I recommend to everybody they fucking try this shit.
Yep.
You don't like it? Well, there's nothing wrong with that either. But the
no,
reality
that's
is
fine,
it
too.
helps a lot of people, whether it helps them mentally or physically. I mean, I think in states like Colorado and states like California, there's definitely a lot of people that are getting physical help from medical marijuana.
And even things like ketamine now. Ketamine is showing to be
For
possible psychologically.
for depression, right?
Yeah.
Same with
Important,
mushrooms. John Hopkins did a very famous study about 4 or 5 years ago showing how mushrooms can help overall depression, but it significantly helps people who are on their deathbed.
Oh, no shit.
Basically, it helps them rationalize the fact that they're going to die, and come to peace with it. It's like a night and day difference for people that are on their deathbed to go through a mushroom trip and realize that, whatever. I don't know what
I was going to die anyhow.
Oh yeah, everybody's going to die. I mean, everybody's going to fucking die, right? Everybody's going to die. But you don't think about it till you're on your fucking deathbed, basically, or else you're past the age of 80 and it's within fucking spitting distance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But It isn't, I don't know. I am a big proponent, and I have been for, I guess, ever since I've been like 15, basically. And
For death panels?
I mean, you go on back roads with your friends around here, and you kind of have fun like on that level, but it's definitely
Allegedly.
No, I think one of the teasers you have for Brain Gravy is the throwing beer bottles at road
throwing
signs.
beer bottles at road signs.
And so
That's the OG
I actually
one,
retired from that when I was 19.
Is that right?
Yeah, I had to retire from that because I was driving. It was a '97 Saturn, and it had a sunroof. And so me and my buddy were out boozing and cruising, and we had a Heineken. I had a Heineken, like a liter bottle, and I threw it through the sunroof, and I hit the road sign I was aiming at, and we were going like 60. I was on a main road, not the back roads.
Right.
And I was like, I'm at my peak. I peaked at 19. And I can't drink for 2 more years. I got to retire. So it'd be just like, it's the equivalent of like LeBron James retiring after his high school game or something. So so what you're looking at is a lot of undiscovered potential for throwing beer.
See, the real
bottles
trick
at road signs.
Is a driver go over from take your left hand, go over the roof, and hit one of those small mile markers, the green ones. They call it the green raccoon.
I don't believe that can be done. I've never seen that.
That was my
Bullshit.
folks used to tell me that was the big thing back in the day. They called them green raccoons sitting on top of the fence posts. It's just the green mile marker signs, but to go over the top and then hit them like that is kind of
left-handed.
And then eventually you're like, damn it, I'm from a rural area, aren't I? Son of a bitch.
You might be a redneck if. Yeah.
But one of the things that you were talking about earlier, though, with laying in the meadow and looking at the stars up above with minimum light pollution, was usually around solstice and equinox have a lot of meaning. For me, I'm not sure how it fits in with everyone else, but the summer solstice, June 21st, they usually at that time you're at the tail end of lightning bug season. The lightning bugs will only be out for X amount of days, right?
Right.
Or weeks. And I remember just it's up right on the land there. They had the pond, and then the lightning bugs would come out, and then the stars were coming down. So you had the physical stars right there blinking on and off.
Right.
And if you get there just like at dusk, the bats come out to harvest their mosquitoes across the pond, and they'll go skimming. And and for me, again, you're talking about why I wanted you to clarify was the smallness that you felt.
Yep.
And I feel the same thing when I'm out there, but it's on many different levels as far as you have the stars, and then you experience the stars in 3D, and then you have the nightlife bats, but they don't actually do anything at night. It's only dusk, so they have 20 minutes to get their shit done
right
at night or in the morning. And just that you can feel the world's ambivalence toward your existence.
Yeah.
And I think you should feel that. And that might be why I was hypercritical of Instagram earlier. Was that it was like
it's the
everyone's
opposite of that.
look at me, and in the end, holy shit, you don't matter, man.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
At everybody, yeah.
But of course, I think if you took that to its extreme, neither neither would be healthy. Neither are good for you mentally.
On one side, you have like Kim Kardashian, which is the ultimate look at me, right?
Yeah. Could you imagine though that the world
that mindset must be a nightmare.
Understand?
Yeah, that must be a nightmare. But I think the definition of it is like you don't realize that you're that self-centered,
but also could make you like millions of dollars.
That's the thing is like it does, but I mean, at what cost? Because I would rather have that super cathartic fucking meadow experience than ever be in the mindset of like a Kim Kardashian. Yes, I'm sure she has fucking millions of dollars.
Dude, if I
and
had
I'm
the
sure
money,
that
I'll buy the experience.
she can't experience it though. She will never be able to experience that, no matter how much money she
Well,
has.
maybe that is what she experiences from all the money. Maybe that's her
I guaran-
cathartic experience.
I guarantee it's not. There's no fucking way. The only way she could experience that is by going down to fucking South America and paying some fucking ayahuasca shaman to send her to another fucking universe.
She's
my
probably
friend.
done that several
Yeah.
times.
I guarantee she hasn't. But if she did, can you imagine if Kim Kardashian had a fucking like a super strong ayahuasca experience? She would
Holy
like
cow.
if she just came
Live
back from that
stream it.
like totally gave away all her money, became philanthropist.
A full-on rapist?
Rapist. That would be something for the fucking times.
Would she have to rip out, like, she has ass implants, right?
I don't think
Who
so.
knows?
Who
Who
the fuck
knows?
knows?
But
Kanye
but if you
knows.
did that,
Kanye knows.
like, would part of the cathartic experience be that you have to self-mutilate again? You know, take the implants out?
I
and-
guarantee if
I'm
she
not
has
judging
like
her. Good for her. If that's what she needs to feel beautiful.
I feel like the definition of like these or like what happens during these ayahuasca super trips, like where you fucking meet your maker, pretty much, is like
you like vomit so violently, right? Isn't that the one that you have to like?
it's insane.
Yeah.
It's like people.
psilocybin, psilocybin. Is
That's
that different?
that's the active ingredient
That's
in mushrooms
mushrooms, yeah.
and psilocybin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. But ayahuasca is a completely different animal. Ayahuasca is not something that you do
ayahuasca isn't-
recreationally.
Yeah, that's not a recreational one. That's a serious.
That's a full-on
yeah.
rapist right
That's
there. That's a
shaman
full-on
level
rapist
stuff,
for your
yeah.
mind.
Wait, to take a completely radical right turn, if that's all right. Where are you on the Opie and Anthony, and then Jim and Sam? And do you follow any of that drama?
That is a fucking whole super right turn. But I
Yeah,
don't mind.
I
I
was
don't mind
thinking-
getting into it.
Yeah.
I've been a huge Opie and Anthony fan since 2004. Basically, that's when I first got XM Sirius Radio.
It was after Jim came on board then.
Jim was on board
Yep.
then. Yeah. It was when they first came on XM, or they were on XM then, and then when XM Sirius merged, they were on XM Sirius. But
Okay.
I listened to them from 2004 until probably 2011, like religiously, and that was when it was the whole crew still. And then I stopped listening because I didn't want to pay for XM Sirius anymore, and that's when I
Sure.
started getting the podcast. And then I knew that Anthony got kicked off, and it's
Yep.
been the Opie and Jim show. And then I listened to Opie and Jim for a while. It was pretty much the same show. I do miss
Yep.
Anthony. Like he
Yeah.
does have his part.
Yep.
But the show overall was pretty. I mean, they had in rotating co-hosts like Sherrod Small, funny
Vic
comedian.
Henley.
Yep, and I enjoyed it from that level. But since I've been listening to podcasts, I can't go back to shows like that. Like I listen to Howard Stern once in a while, but Howard Stern's a master interviewer, so I like listening to him.
Whether you like him or not, he
knows how to fucking
follows the
interview.
questions. And you feel like he's genuinely interested.
Yeah,
You know, in
I think he
whomever
is, yeah.
whomever he's interviewing. Like he would be the next. The old guy with suspenders there, Larry. Is it
Larry King.
He could be the next Larry
Yeah.
King.
Well, you know, one of my favorite people, and it's actually relating back to Opie and Anthony, is a master interviewer. One of my favorite people to listen to is Ron Bennington.
Oh yeah, Unmasked.
Yeah, Ron
Yep.
Bennington is fucking amazing, dude. He's one of my
Yes.
favorite people in the fucking world. But yeah,
Well, wait.
so that was my view on Opie. Why
Okay,
did
real quick on, because we'll go back to Opie and Anthony, but Ron Bennington, had you listened since he brought his daughter on in the past
no
8 to 10 months?
No, I haven't, but I know.
Okay.
I've heard from other comedians that it's pretty good.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, they're listening to, that's Rock God, right, with Ron Bennington.
Well, I've heard other comedians talk about how his daughter's on there, and
Yep.
just said it's interesting.
Okay, yeah, that'd be it. Yeah, that is interesting. The Opie and Anthony. Well, anyway, so we went with Opie and Jim,
Yeah.
right? Now, Opie. What's interesting about Opie is he went to school in Geneseo,
That's right. Yeah.
and so
Got
when
to
you-
start up in Rochester.
When you go up 390, you get in on Dansville and going up to Rochester. You pass Geneseo a couple times. I've been to Geneseo several times. I played rugby in college, and that's one
Yep.
of the games we played was in Geneseo. And they had, this would have been like 5-8 years ago, they had a really cool record shop there too that could only
Buzzos.
exist on a campus town. There's nowhere else in the world it can exist because it's such a specific interest.
Buzzos, right?
I'm not sure.
That's it, without a doubt.
Gotcha.
Sure.
But it's cool. It's just good old cool.
Yep.
You know, and so so he was raised in that environment, so he knows, like, as a radio listener, obviously I've never met him, none of that stuff, but I feel like kindred spirit because he knows what a winter is, and he's been through Buffalo.
Yep.
When he was in the earlier part of his career, Brother Weeze in Rochester, he's done. It was his mentor, all that stuff. So I feel like this relationship with Opie, and that's his job as a radio host, is to make it feel like we're best friends.
Right, yeah.
That if he's good at his job, then that's what he does.
Right.
And that's the same thing for your podcast. In order to get more viewers, you have to make sure that you can relate to the guests as well as the listeners, and all that. You already know all this stuff.
That's why, like, before we started, that's why you're asking, like, okay, can we swear and all this stuff? I was like, dude, we can do whatever the fuck we want, because I want it to come off as organically as possible. Like, I'm not on here
to
like
the beeps later,
but like, I'm not on here to, like, conjure this image of myself as like some fucking amazing person, nor my guests. I would rather the people that tune into this and appreciate the fact that it's fucking real people having being a fly on a wall to a conversation that's happening amongst friends. Because I mean, like, whenever, like, you've had good bar conversations, you've had good conversations with friends. They're always the best conversations. You know what I mean?
They're fun, and
that's how I try to approach this podcast. Is like, you talk about, like, Brother Weeze and, like, these radio personalities, and they kind of have to have a shtick. Like, hey, it's fucking Dirty Joe in the morning, bringing you fucking. How's everybody doing this morning? It's almost like the guy that brings on fucking strippers, like, and your next lady is Mercedes. Put your hands together for Mercedes. It's the same person that does that voice. You know what I mean? And that's a shtick. Whereas, like, I think the stuff that I'm attracted to as a listener is always the stuff that's very real and very open and honest, and I guess raw. If I'm going to put a
gotcha,
and that's what I try to do with this podcast, is just have it fucking go wherever. We started off talking about fucking farming. We went into fucking mushrooms, and now we're talking about
Instagram.
Fucking
got Instagram in there.
Yeah,
like, you can't write that out. You can't.
No, you can't have that as a skeleton draft for conversation.
Yeah.
So, anyways, going back to the so Opie and Jim had basically broke up, and it was ugly. So Jim goes on with Sam Roberts.
Yep, I like Sam.
I'm
Sam.
competitive with you. Then I'm a huge Sam Roberts fan. He's so. Like,
we got to be competitive. Why can't we just both love?
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of that. But anyway, so but he has this. He does the last professional broadcaster. He proclaims himself as that, which is awesome because
Sam does?
Sam Roberts, the last real broadcaster, something like that. So he's on there with Jim. All right, Jim is reactionary, right? And he'd even say that himself. That's what was good with Opie and Anthony and Jim, is Opie steered the ship. Anthony and Jim were reactionary, and they were hilarious. And Opie didn't like that role anymore. I think that's what happened.
There's a lot of pressure in that role, yeah.
Well, and you're trying, and the idea is that you're calling the end of bits, and you're being a taskmaster. And who wants that? Who would want that?
Right.
But anyway, so we're getting back to Jim and Sam have their own show now. Well, Sam, because he's a wrestling fan, he knows which way Jim is going to go when Jim does his Uncle Paul or his
Chipperson.
Oh, Christ, Chip is so funny. So he does that, and he'll lead the questions on for Chip to answer. So
I've heard him do that.
He'll set up, like, the question. He goes, "We're going to have fish and chips," and of course Jim goes, "What's that?" And so it cracks me up. And I think, like, the show they're putting on is really hilarious.
I haven't listened to it yet.
Oh, it's worth it. And you talk about that raw, the raw feel is what Jim puts out. Sam gives you the idea of super polished, but aware of it, and knows that he knows that I know as a listener that he's a fraud.
Right.
And he knows this, and he's okay with it. But not
Yeah.
fraud isn't bad, but and just like he's commanding this circus.
Right.
Right.
But you
It's
know what's
fraud, I shouldn't have said fraud is bad.
No, I understand where you're
so,
going at.
And so that was, it's a really interesting dynamic. And so I'll listen to him like 2 or 3 times a week. I don't listen to him every day.
Right.
But it's hilarious.
You know what's interesting about Sam too is like I can remember on Opie and Anthony when Sam was in there as an intern, like
Needling assholes. What
yeah,
needle.
he like fucking sitting on Robert Kelly's fucking lap naked. Do you remember that shit? Everything. Yeah.
I think I remember that one. I just remember Sam though. He would always, like the very funny, like the funniest things the stuff that I appreciate that I think is funny is when they have a guest come on and they're starting to bicker, they're starting to argue,
Yeah,
and then one of them will go ooh, like that. That's the sound they make, and what that does is that gets the other guy's cackles up, you know. And so it's just like, so you know, oh fuck you, no fuck you, oh boy, you know, something like that, instigate, and it's needling, and that's something I try to do. Like when I go out, is I stole the Bill Burr line, oh Jesus. He has that killer line. It is go, oh Jesus, you know. And so I do that. Like if there's any sign of tension or something like that, I want it. And I learned that from Sam and Jim and all that stuff. Where you want to see, you don't want to see the crack. You want to make it into a gaping chasm, and that's what they want to do socially. And that's, I think that's what people appreciate about them. But I haven't listened to much Opie's show because he's on afternoons now, and Jim and Sam is still in the morning.
Is that how it works now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thanks for talking about that.
Yeah, no,
I've been wanting to talk to somebody about that.
It's interesting. I was talking to I have been a big Opie and Anthony fan for years, like I said, and only like last year I brought it up in conversation at a party, and someone else, a friend of mine, a friend that I've had for a long time, was like, "Oh, you listen? I listen to them too." And then we got on a deep fucking Opie and Anthony, like talking about skits or talking about like just days in the they do it 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So if you remember one specific day and someone else can relate to that, like.
Yeah.
You know what's really interesting about Opie and Anthony is I actually called in when they were on XM Sirius. I called in and got through one time.
Oh, did you?
So what had happened is I had done like when I was in the military, I flew on C-17 cargo planes.
Okay.
And sometimes 99% of the time you take cargo wherever, but once in a while you can take like they call them USO tours, which is where you take like famous people to Afghanistan or Iraq, and
they perform there.
They perform,
yeah.
And for me, it was like professional wrestlers.
Now, did you go as a performer or as okay?
One is the fucking Ivan Drago look like, I guess. No, I so like we had on like it was pretty cool. We had Vince McMahon, we had fucking John Cena, Batista, fucking The Big Show. All these super famous fucking people.
Yeah.
Like, Vince McMahon's worth like fucking $4 billion. Yes. And I'm sitting there like having a small time, like making small talk with him.
Yeah.
John Cena wasn't super popular at that time. He was like a popular wrestler, but he hadn't switched over to movies yet.
Okay.
But still, like, that's John Cena. I mean, I'm not a wrestling fan, but I knew who these people were. So we took them around for like 2 weeks. And there's also a lot of female wrestlers too.
Sure.
So really cool pictures all over my Facebook if you're ever interested in looking at them.
No.
I see that's the narcissistic side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Instagram, check those out on Instagram.
Well, I thought you were talking to me, so that's my own narcissism. But
so I get back from that trip, and I have like 4 or 5 days off before I have to go on another one. And I'm riding around, and I'm listening to Opie and Anthony, and one of those female wrestlers who had also gotten back was on their show. And I'm listening, I'm like, holy shit, that's so... I had her on my fucking chat. So I called up, and I talked to one of the interns, I called up, I'm like, hey, like, I just took that wrestler around for 2 weeks. I guess I just want to call in and say, like, I'm a listener, and... Yeah, and and just have some interaction. So I got on and I talked to Opie and Anthony and Jim and Talked to him for probably about, I don't know if I'm remembering right, like 5 to 10 minutes.
No shit.
They were asking me questions about like what I do. My title in the Air Force was Loadmaster.
Yeah.
So of course they fucking gagged on that for like a solid 5 minutes. But it was really cool because like I had finally had some reason to talk to these people that I'd idolized in my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you knew them.
Yeah,
because that's
like
they're
what you
good
said,
at their job.
Yeah,
Yep.
I did. You're right, dude. And when you said that, I thought to myself, you're right. I like these podcasts that I listen to Joe Rogan, very consistently, and I feel like I could walk up to Joe Rogan on the street and talk to him like he's my fucking friend from way back. And I'm sure he gets that all the time from people because
he's probably sick of that shit.
I'm sure he is. Yeah, but
the one thing when Bert Kreischer first showed up to Joe Rogan's house, he says this a couple times. As he says to Joe, is like, I want to see everything. I want to see the flotation tank. I want to see the chickens. I want to, and this is what Bert was doing to Joe, and
right,
and, So I imagine.
Well, speaking of Bert Kreischer, okay, this is he signed that. I'm a big Bert Kreischer fan.
Yeah,
my buddy saw him in Pittsburgh, and we were both going to go together. And I ended up having to cancel at the last minute. And he's like, and I asked him, I was like, go find like fucking some like baby doll head and have him sign it. I didn't think he would. He went out to the dollar store, bought a baby doll, ripped the fucking head off, and brought it to Bert Kreischer, and he signed it. Actually, if we go to that show later on this month, I plan on taking that baby doll head and having him sign it again and seeing if he remembers.
I wasn't sure whether to bring that up or not because if like you'd already made other plans or something like that, then I'd feel stupid. But I'm I want to go.
I still want to go.
Bert Kreischer.
For sure.
And if there's other people out there, fucking, I think tickets are like $25, and he's playing a bunch of nights. We have to figure out which night because he's there Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Right.
Friday, Saturday, he's doing 2 shows. But he's doing on Thursday. He's actually going to do the calling sick from work tour, which you go to the bar at 8 a.m.
Yeah,
and you drink. He'll do a show and just chill out and drink with you through the day because he'll do. And
I can't start drinking at 8 a.m.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste. But I think that would have been fun if I were like 10 years younger. So, but I'm, that's what I'm thinking. Figure out which nights to go and which show and all that stuff.
Right.
But he just hit like. The Machine story just hit Facebook in the past 3 weeks. I listened to Bert Kreischer's podcast, and he had like my favorite one was he had his wife on. It was Leanne and Me is the name of the podcast, and that one was so funny. I think it's just because the fish out of water, the straight how you have real comedy duos, you have to have a straight man. And there's the one that gets the yucks, but the one with the yucks can't exist unless he has the dichotomy of the straight man to go off of.
Right.
It's not funny if it doesn't exist, and that's what she represents. It was a straight person, was a straight man in that one, and then Bert would like pepper in his insecurities every once in a while. It was just it was funny, but he does. I listen to him. I listen to his every week.
His laugh is fucking one of a kind.
Oh god,
it makes like I can just hear him laugh, and I will start laughing no matter what.
Yep. So what I was thinking is when you go to the show, I was kind of hoping because I'd heard the Machine and it's a good story and it's fun, but I wanted to hear some new material stuff.
Yeah.
But that just hit big, and what he's talking about on his podcast right now is how he's going to be locked into the future of telling the Machine just because it got popular.
Yep.
So I know that he's going to be doing it in Buffalo, the 26ers, that weekend, 26, 27, 28, somewhere in there. Fuck, am I Bert Kreischer's agent here promoting fucking Bert Kreischer? He'll be in your neck of the woods. But anyway, so yeah, he's doing
the Machine though, so
yeah, he'll do that skit or that bit for, I think it's like 8-10 minute bit. But that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's a long bit.
I think it's like 15 minutes because I just watched it on Facebook.
Yeah, I just watched it again recently. Yeah.
And that's just it
where
but it's done like millions of views where it didn't before. And I thought, just like Bert, I thought everybody had heard the Machine and everybody laughed and thought it was funny. But
it's that Comedy Central special
That's what it was on. I'm pretty sure is a Comedy Central special, and then like someone cut it up to where it was just that story, and then it was just it's been shared on Facebook like crazy lately.
Okay,
but the thing about Bert Kreischer too, it's very interesting. Is like, and I've said this before. It's the movie Van Wilder with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah,
is based on his actual life.
Yeah.
He had a Rolling Stones article wrote about him, and then like the people that were writing Van Wilder, or the people that would write Van Wilder, took it directly from that Rolling Stones article about Bert Kreischer being at the University of Florida.
Yep, did it from there. Bert has that one crazy story where he kicked a guy out of the band, and the guy went on to play in Creed. Not like
I haven't heard that one.
You haven't heard? Oh, it's funny.
No.
What's funny is the guy who got kicked out. This was from Bert Kreischer's band when he was in Florida at what University of Miami? Is that what you said?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think University of Florida, University of Miami, or something like that.
Where he was there. Well, anyways, he told his he told us a story that he kicked the guy out while the guy won't confirm the story. And so now Bert looks like a fucking liar. Right. And I'm sure we've all felt this before where you go through life and you're like, holy shit, am I crazy? Like, one of the things I've wondered is, like, am I on the autism scale and nobody tells me? Like,
do I have Asperger's?
That's like, is everybody just, like, pandering my shitty jokes, or my shitty reality? Is it,
right.
Am I autistic? And so, and I think that's, like, what Bert is feeling at that moment, where it's just, like, I know that was that guy. Of course it was a guy. My memory couldn't have changed. And this guy's denying it. Well, fuck, at a certain point. And I think that's a question that everybody can relate to, where you're just like, oh my God.
Yourself,
there's no way that everybody's fucked up. So it has to be me.
I tell you what, I just looked at the old time. I think we're going to wrap this
Holy
one
cow,
up.
we put 3 hours in almost.
I know. It's
oh boy.
This has been a long podcast.
Good.
It's been a fucking awesome
If anyone
podcast.
made it all the way through, congratulations.
I know, for real. This has been a fucking fun ass podcast, dude.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
so much for coming on.
Oh, and you're a comedian, so can you tell me a joke?
Can I tell you a joke?
Yeah.
Offhand,
Isn't that the worst thing to ask a comedian, right?
Yeah, because
Tell me a joke.
it's kind of hard when you're put on the spot like that.
Make me laugh, comedian.
I can't tell you a joke. It's not really how it works.
I know.
This whole episode.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get in one last shot. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Actually, I'll tell you.
We
a joke.
always have to give him shit a little bit.
So I just turned 31. Right. I just had my 31st birthday.
I'll take your word for it.
Boy.
I found out that 31 is a lot like the middle child. It's just not as important as the one that came before it.
Sure.
That's my joke.
Oh, okay.
That's a throwaway 31-year-old
No, that's
joke.
hilarious.
Yeah, is it?
Well, the thing is that joke though, like on its own, once it's built into context, right?
Yeah,
that's what makes it funny.
Yeah.
When you tell any joke on its own, it's stupid, right?
Exactly. That's why I didn't want to tell a joke.
Let's analyze it. Let's break it down.
But no, there's the one where why is a panda the worst? Because it eats, shoots, and leaves.
Oh my god! So it took me a second.
I know, that's hilarious.
They're ruthless.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
on,
no,
man. I really appreciate it and taking the
great talk.
time.
Very fun podcast. You want to plug Sugar Haven Farms?
We got sugarhavenfarms.com. That'll get you to the website, which will get more into the philosophy, and it has real-time inventory. And then on Facebook, we're Sugar Haven Farms as well. That gets into the day-to-day. I take pictures, post articles that I think are pertinent or funny to agriculture. And I'm going to try and embrace more narcissism in the future, because
more narcissism
get on
is coming.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, we got to get people to feel and to see the human as well.
Yep.
And so those are going on, and if you check that out, that'd be great. So yeah, I appreciate the venue.
Awesome. For myself, I will be at the Brute bar in Hornell on February 24th. I'm in a comedy competition.
Fun.
Come out for that, because I'm putting together
This
a
is
fucking
the second one, isn't it?
Yes.
Number 2.
And I am
He's going for
determined
number
to
first place.
fucking
Yeah,
win.
he's gonna
I'm going to
win
get
this
close
one.
to this motherfucker, dude.
Good.
Actually, I just wrote the first half of my set for that today.
I hope it wasn't a
Solid
joke
shit.
you just gave us.
Actually, once we shut off the record, I'll I'll give you guys a sneak preview of that, so I can get a little bit of feedback.
Oh yeah, in his context. So
yeah. So I will be at the Brute Bar in Hornell on February 24th. I think it starts at 7, but don't quote me. It's a Facebook event. If you're on Facebook, just check it out. Speaking of Facebook, if you haven't yet, please like the Brain Gravy Facebook page. You can also, big news, Brain Gravy has a website, braingravy.org. Yeah. Go to braingravy.org, check out the episodes, subscribe to us on iTunes. We had to redo our iTunes account for this webpage. So if you subscribe to Brain Gravy beforehand, you have to resubscribe again because it's a new account. I'm sorry about that. Very sorry about it, but let's get over it. Let's move on.
Boy.
Moving into the future. Fuck the past, moving to the future. This is what we're doing. So like the Brain Gravy Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Subscribe to us on SoundCloud. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And all the above. Other than that, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next episode.
See you later.
Thank you.